Ji Yuanfeng and his student followed him, concerned that something might befall the tower master. Sui Ping snorted and ignored Gu Siping. He solemnly focused his eyes on the sea dragon and the Empress. The Empress would probably make a move if he wanted to kill the sea dragon, otherwise she wouldn't have appeared when he prepared the previous attack. It's best if you stay put. Once the Empress noticed Sui Ping move closer with his sword, she looked away from the battle in the secondary space to focus on him and frown. Don't interrupt my observation. You can't kill anyone in front of me. I have no time for you right now. Sui Ping raised his eyebrows and paused. She might sound arrogant, but her statement was true. Same as him, the Empress had grasped some of the basic rules. However, she was at the top of the fate state, a major level above him. After using up his power through consecutive battles, he only had enough for one more void sword, whereas she could obviously make use of the power of laws multiple times. He wouldn't be a match for her. Since she was planning on resting and observing the star state's usage of laws, it was a fine time for Sui Ping to have a breather. He would rather not infuriate the Emperor of the Seas. Humanity would collapse soon if the Empress were to join the battlefield. Even if Sui Ping was able to challenge her, she only needed to keep him busy and ask the Sea Dragon to hold Ji Yuanfeng back. That way the other Fate State Beast Kings would be enough to exterminate Gu Siping and the Deputy Chief. Not to mention that there were plenty of Void State and Ocean State Beast Kings, as well as an overwhelming tide of lesser beasts. Besides, the beast sides in the other directions remained inactive. There was no telling if their Fate State Beast Kings were on their way over. Sui Ping had no time to contact the command center to figure this out. All in all, it would be a fair deal if both he and the Empress didn't do anything. Sure. Sui Ping accepted the demand and stayed where he was, observing the great battle in the secondary space. The outcome of that interspecies war eventually depended on Naihuo Feng. If he won, human beings would win. If he failed, human beings would be destroyed. The sea dragon then saw that Sui Ping and the Empress were watching the battle in the secondary space. It quickly rolled its eyes and slowly crawled to the battlefield nearby. I'll kill you if you dare to join the battle. An indifferent voice was heard near the sea dragon's head. The sea dragon froze for a moment. It looked at Sui Ping angrily and roared, "Why don't you try to kill me? Her Majesty will definitely execute you." Sui Ping replied with a casual remark, "It's fine if she attacks me if I attack you. But that way she won't be able to enjoy the battle." The sea dragon's expression changed in a subtle manner as it looked at the Empress, only to discover that she was dedicating her full attention to the fight happening inside the secondary space. It knew how she craved to enter that level, and she was already at the doorstep of a breakthrough. All she needed to do was to open the door. For the Emperor of the Seas. The sea dragon withdrew its gaze and glared at Sui Ping, no longer moving from that spot. It didn't intend to waste that precious opportunity. If the Empress understood something and advanced into the star state, none of the sea beasts would be suppressed anymore. Otherwise, even if they won the war, they would still be dominated by the Lord of the Deep Caves. On the other hand, the Heavenly King of Good and Evil, which had finally managed to heal itself, rose from the ground and stared at Sui Ping with its black head. Still, the beast didn't dare to make a move. Sui Ping had made 2 attempts to use his sword earlier, which made it aware that the human was still capable of launching the extraordinary sword technique. "Stay where you are, or I'll kill you." Sui Ping directed those words to the Heavenly King's ears, just like a command. The latter growled with eyes filled with fury, but the fury was gone when Sui Ping turned around and looked back at it. It then decided to ignore him after much deliberation. If Sui Ping were to attack it, it was unlikely that the Ocean Emperor would defend it. After all, it wasn't one of the Empress generals, like the Sea Dragon. Also, everyone was observing the battle, might as well join them. After all, the Ocean Emperor would be to blame later if the Deep Caves Lord got angry. The Heavenly King of Good and Evil turned to observe the secondary space. It was already at the peak of the fate state but never found laws. It was only able to fend off the Empress attacks with special blood skills, but she was capable of slaying it in a real battle. So, it had never dared to piss off the Empress in years. If it was able to perceive the power of laws with such an opportunity, it would grow significantly stronger, possibly becoming the best demon king in its level. A weird scene appeared on the battlefield after the Heavenly King lowered its head. The Heavenly King of Good and Evil and the Sea Dragon were crouched among the beasts, two giant and strong wild beasts in their own right, while Suaping and the Empress stood still in midair. Intense battles were taking place around them. It was understandable that the Fate State Beast Kings and the other creatures didn't attack the Empress nor the Heavenly King, but it was mind-boggling to see that none tried to attack Suaping. It was all due to his deterrent aura. Everybody was amazed by the scene. Suaping had awed all the wild beasts on the entire battlefield with his performance. Suaping was also watching the battle in the secondary space at the moment, but not as devotedly as the Empress was. He was still prepared for possible ambushes. He had seen too many Star State battles. So, he was quite astonished by the one taking place. It seems that both of them are rather weak. Has Nihua Feng mastered a flame-based law? I don't know which one it is exactly. It seems to be burning, or maybe melting. The curse-winged beast has mastered a law of swallowing, which seemed to be from the dark path. It had yet to use its spell power yet, it seems to be less reckless than it looks. The more Suaping looked, the more solemn he became. Although he wasn't a real Star State expert yet, he had seen too many of them fighting. While the battle in front of his eyes was so intense that the void was being torn apart and flames were spreading out, he felt that something was off. It seemed that those two were immature? Yes, immature. Suaping had seen the battles of Joanna's Star State subordinates in the demigod burial. They were less splendid and had fewer explosions. However, the usage of laws was extremely skilled, like sharp scalpels. The contenders could always attack each other's vulnerabilities. The ones fighting at the moment were also making use of the power of laws, but it was more as if they were more bashing each other with hammers. The scene looked awe-inspiring, but was in fact overly unrefined. It did make sense. The highest level on the blue planet is the Star State. Those two have nobody to teach them. The Star State gods by Joanna's side could ask for her guidance as well as the council of other teachers. It was easier for them to be enlightened. The more Suaping watched, the harder he shook his head. However, he concluded that he was even more pitiful when he realized that he had only grasped the basics of an annihilation law, even though he knew a lot of theories. Suaping wore a bitter smile as he turned to look at the Empress. It was clearly improbable for her to perfect her understanding of laws by watching the battle. After all, the two fighters were wielding complete laws, they weren't deducing their laws. Even if they were, it would be hard to see the process clearly, especially when they were fighting with laws as weapons. Laws are hard to understand. Suaping heaved a soft sigh. Aside from perceiving laws independently, the only alternative left was to watch other people's deductions. Still, it would be hard to understand them with only one or two observations. Otherwise, a single Star State expert would be enough to train many more Star State companions. Suaping had perceived the law of annihilation during his training in the Golden Crow world, all thanks to his abundant battle experiences. A person's daily experiences could be summarized into a deep understanding when an epiphany struck. It was impossible to construct a tall building in a day. Even though observing couldn't help much with his understanding of laws, Suaping still watched the battle carefully. After all, the battle was too significant. He also found that the rudimentary usage of laws actually made them easier to understand. The Star State gods in the demigod burial used the laws in such a sophisticated way that he couldn't understand at all. Burning. He can even burn space. Suaping saw that the flames released by Nihua Feng were enshrouding the secondary space. He could feel the heat even outside of it. The heat was not a physical temperature, but the burning of the mind. Suaping then had an epiphany and felt he had a deeper understanding about flames. His understanding of thunder had been raised to the mid-level, he was able to release thunder skills close to the fate state. However, he was only able to release mediocre fire skills thus far. He felt that he had just grasped something new about heat and burning, which were the fundamentals of the flame laws. Fundamental elements were closer to the core. While Suiping was slightly distracted from the battle, the bones covering him became pointier and covered him as a shield. That was the little skeleton's work. It had sensed Suiping's focus and changed from the attached state to semi-attachment. It would have a chance to resist in Suiping's place. Obey me and be my pet. We can conquer space together. Boom. Back in the secondary space, Nai Huofeng attacked with a scorching fist of flames, reaching the curse-winged beast. He had become significantly taller and looked down at the creature. Roar! The curse-winged beast roared and waved its claws to put out the flames on its body. It roared, "In your dreams. Do you have to endure be maimed before you give in?" Nai Huofeng's eyes became cold. Flames spread out of his body, and a weird fiery rune emerged from his forehead. Adding his crimson hair, he looked like the god of fire. Once he became furious, destructive flames gathered in his palm. They twisted the secondary space around him and were almost tearing it apart. The flames formed a long spear, one that was shining brilliantly and releasing the powerful aura of laws. It contained a complete set of laws. Break! Nai Huofeng quickly threw the spear with light bursting out of his eyes. He then strode after the fiery spear and charged at the curse-winged beast. From the opponent's perspective, the curse-winged beast changed its expression upon seeing the brilliant spear. It roared, and the violent demonic aura around him formed a gigantic mouth, right in front of it. Demon Swallower. That was a law it had perceived. It had swallowed too many disobedient wild beasts in the deep caves over the years. It's useless. Your law is too weak. Burn to ashes, roared Nai Huofeng while he sprinted. He had seen that his old opponent's law was one of the most durable, while his own law had a much greater explosive power and could completely handle the enemy. The moment of explosiveness was enough to win the battle. Blood spell, Demon Sea. Right before colliding, the curse-winged beast suddenly roared and its wings unleashed a horrifying blood aura. Complex rune came out of its wings, they produced a bloody luminance like a scripture. The pure dark secondary space was suddenly filled by an ocean of blood. Tides were rising in the bloody ocean as the ancient runes were activated. What? Nai Huofeng was dazed by the scene. The next moment, the bloody ocean had already surrounded the fiery spear, and the dark runes displayed in them were entangling the spear like vipers as they tried to extinguish it. Haha, you didn't see this coming, did you? It's a bloodline skill of my clan. It was a punishment imposed on us by the ancient demon gods, but it later became our power. The curse-winged beast was laughing and roaring crazily as it pushed the giant mouth towards the fiery spear. Even so, you still have to die. The shock on Nai Huofeng's face was gone, and rampant flames rose in his burning eyes. The brilliant fiery spear would also produce a dazzling light, and white flames were rising. The flames quickly got rid of the spell power and tore the bloody ocean apart. Then, it flew out of the roiling tides with an unstoppable momentum. The curse-winged beast was stunned for a moment and hurriedly resisted by unleashing a demonic aura, hoping to weaken the white flames on the spear, but it was burnt up the moment it approached. Die! Flames came out of Nai Huofeng's eyes, making him look like a god. He pushed his hand, and the spear burned even more brilliantly and moved faster. Boom! The spear stabbed the mouth, the collision of the two laws caused a deafening noise. Destructive energy surged out, and the beasts near the battlefield were instantly burnt into ashes, leaving no bodies behind. Whoosh! The curse-winged beast was flung thousands of meters away. While stepping on the edge of the secondary space, it ended up with blood all over its body and a huge hole on its chest. A white flame was still burning inside the hole. The curse-winged beast struggled to raise its claws and put out the flame on its chest. Then, it looked at the flame-covered Nai Huofeng with the coldest killing determination in its eyes. Not yielding, hey! Nai Feng looked down at it from the heights. The curse-winged beast stared back at him, then suddenly grinned and laughed, dropping all the seriousness on its face. Nai Feng, I've waited for 1,000 years. Today, I'll cut you to shreds and eat you from your feet to your guts. You'll have the chance to watch yourself being eaten by me, declared the beast while it licked its cheeks, with its tongue secreting a copious amount of mucus. Nai Feng added with cold eyes, if that's what you're dead set on doing, you'd better die. He raised his hand and gathered the divine flames all over his body, forming a brilliant spear again. The curse-winged beast laughed even harder upon seeing that. Then, its laughter came to an abrupt halt, before it said in absolutely calmness, "Do you really think I didn't know that you wanted me to break the seal? Hee hee. I've kept the little creature you left to monitor me for 1,000 years. Even though you were smart enough not to establish a contract with it, do you really think I was oblivious to it?" Nai Feng was stunned for a moment, then his expression changed. "What do you think I've been doing all these years?" The curse-winged beast looked at Nai Feng with a casual gaze. Its violent and twisted aura was gone, it then became calm and composed as if it were someone else. "That's right. I've been preparing to eat you," it said calmly. "Do you think I only have one law? Hee hee. I've already perceived a second law 200 years ago. It's not complete yet, but it's still usable." Nai Feng's pupils contracted as he looked at the beast in shock. Was that statement true? "Speaking of which, I have to thank you, for allowing me to fight in the deep caves without a chance to take a rest. You didn't have such opportunities on the surface, did you?" There was mockery in the curse-winged beast's eyes. "Do you think the resulting energy from the collisions in our earlier battle was dispersed?" "Yes, some of it has dispersed, but the rest of it is here." Then, an overwhelming demonic aura surfaced behind it, and then a giant mouth dozens of meters long appeared. It had released a demonic aura multiple times thicker than before. Nai Feng could only gasp at the notion. His eyes were covered in brilliant divine fire while he observed the enemy. He changed his expression, as he did see the hints of a second law behind the demon swallower. The law was quite thin and vague. It seemed to be a law of disguise. Their dialogue in the second space was a telepathic one, because that region was essentially a vacuum and no sound could be transmitted. So, it was impossible for Suoping to tell what they were talking about by reading their lips. Nai Feng currently didn't seem as casual as before. The curse-winged beast, on the other hand, looked as though it were a completely different creature. It had an extremely relaxed appearance. They were both standing still, but their change of expressions indicated a telepathic communication. What did the Lord of the Deep Caves say to shock Nai Feng so? Suoping had a grave look as he thought of many things. He began to feel nervous and wary. If Nai Feng fell, it would mean the doom of humankind. The nearby Heavenly King of Good and Evil and the Empress also wore grave expressions. They had also noticed the anomaly, but they weren't sure what it was about just yet. The Lord of the Deep Caves had been flung back and suppressed earlier, which made their heart grow heavy. Another clash happened in the secondary space while they were wondering what was going on. The curse-winged beast flapped its wings, and the locking spell force that looked like a scripture appeared again, except that it was black and demonic this time. The scripture roamed in the secondary space, and a tremendous amount of blood flowed out of the void, gathering until it formed a bloody ocean. The curse-winged beast stood at the top of the bloody ocean, and the gigantic demon swallower roared. Hundreds of claws reached for Nai Feng from the bloody ocean. Nai Feng bellowed and hurled out the fiery spear again. After a booming sound, the spear flew straight towards the curse-winged beast, almost breaking the secondary space. Bang! 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 The claws on its way tried to stop it, but they were all blown up. The spear was unstoppable as it pressed on, wreathed in sacred and white flames. However, dark runes appeared when it was about to hit the target, blocking the attack as if they contained mysterious powers. The spear then instantly lost its momentum, even though it had shattered a lot of those dark runes. The scorching flames on the spear had also died down. Roar! The gigantic mouth behind the curse-winged beast emerged like an ultimate demon and swallowed the spear. In the blink of an eye, the law-made spear had been swallowed. Explode! Naihuo Feng waved his fist angrily upon seeing that, and dazzling light shone inside the massive mouth. However, the attack failed to penetrate the mouth, disappearing after a dull noise. Naihuo Feng looked awful after witnessing such an outcome. The mouth wasn't torn apart as he expected, and it even consumed his spear. At the same time, the curse-winged beast roared excitedly and charged at Naihuo Feng on the rising bloody ocean. You will answer for what you did to me in the past 1,000 years. The casual and indifferent attitude had left the curse-winged beast's face. It roared furiously, with infinite hatred and fury in its eyes. Naihuo Feng slightly changed his expression and gathered an ocean of flames again. The flames burned up the claws that extended from the bloody ocean. He took a deep breath and poked the fiery rune between his eyebrows. Red cracks were immediately spread out from his forehead and spanned all across his body. It seemed that his body was full of overflowing magma. Roar! He raised his hands quickly, and all the flames over his body were gathered in his hands, forming a fast-spinning fiery wheel. Law of fire, radiating sun. Naihuo Feng roared, and the wheel of fire in his hand unleashed a dazzling light, as if it were going to burn up the sky. Space fell apart in the area surrounding the wheel, and the chaotic spatial blades darted from the tertiary space to Naihuo Feng's face, inflicting cuts. However, what flowed out of the wounds was not blood, but burning flames. His blood seemed to have been entirely replaced by lava and flames. That was his lava body. After a boom, the wheel was thrown out, and the entire secondary space was cut apart by it in the blink of an eye. The curse-winged beast, which was rushing over at a high speed, quickly rolled the bloody ocean in its way. In the meantime, a thick and black demonic aura was spread out from its body, forming a demon domain. There was mist inside the domain, which produced demon shapes that wandered like ghosts and snarled ferociously. Ancient runes were sprawled out over the beast's wings, all full of mysterious power. The beast looked much stronger the moment they surfaced. The cracks in the secondary space were expanded to thousands of meters long as they battled. The sky above the battlefield was completely torn, as if it were nightfall. The great battle left everyone astounded. The people behind the defense lines were speechless. It was beyond their imagination, no words could describe what they felt. It was almost a battle between a god and a devil. The beasts beyond the wall also trembled in fear because of the battle. The Fate State wild beasts who were fighting Gu Siping and the others weren't able to fight devotedly while being disrupted by the weird phenomena. Is this what a Star State battle looks like? Ji Yuanfeng slapped away a Fate State Demon King, then stared at the brilliant ocean of blood and the divine wheel in the secondary space, too shocked to say anything. He was only one step away from the Star State. However, that last step was exactly the most challenging one. On the other side, Gu Siping was so excited by the scene that he fought even more fiercely, eyes bloodshot. The Empress, the Heavenly King of Good and Evil and the Sea Dragon were just as stupefied as Ji Yuanfeng was. Sui Ping, on the other hand, furrowed his eyebrows. That scene was indeed much more shocking than Fate State battles. However, he had seen too many of them, and he wasn't really impressed at the moment. After all, he had seen battles that were hundreds and thousands of times more horrifying. The secret technique that Naihuo Feng had just used was extremely powerful. He was probably fighting while going all out. Still, Sui Ping didn't know if he could win. Boom! The divine wheel and the ocean of blood collided. The wheel slashed the ocean apart and moved forward. It encountered the curse-winged beast's demon domain, instantly making all the ghosts within the domain cry in pain. Although no sound could be heard, everybody saw how intense the battle was. The demon domain was also broken soon after. Once it was broken, the curse-winged beast revealed its true appearance. It was 1,000 meters tall, standing in the bloody ocean like an ancient devil. It was twice as tall as the highest walls of the defense lines. The battle pet warriors deployed on the walls discovered, to their shock, that they had to look up to see the enemy. The magnificent walls looked like two short doorsteps. After a resounding boom, the curse-winged beast waved its law-covered claw again and smashed the divine wheel. Energy gushed out, and the divine wheel exploded. The massive creature was flung back to the end of the secondary space, causing another crack that was 10,000 meters long. The curse-winged beast quickly rose from the ground. The claw it had just waved had already been severed, only the arm was left. It stepped forward into the bloody ocean towards Nai Huofeng as if on a rampage. Nai Huofeng vomited blood as if he was heavily wounded the moment the divine wheel was destroyed. The scorching cracks over his body were gradually closed. Once he saw the curse-winged beast running toward him, he quickly brandished his hand with shock and regret in his eyes, causing a crack. That was the tertiary space. Star state beings were capable of entering the tertiary space. However, that place was quite dangerous to them. They would have to carefully dodge any spatial turbulence. A spatial turbulence carried the power of laws and was extremely destructive. Nai Huofeng opened a crack to the tertiary space, he slid into it, and the cracks on his body started to close. The bloody ocean that rushed at him crashed into nothingness and collapsed. Roar! The curse-winged beast roared furiously like an enraged ape. However, it managed to hold itself back and decided not to break into the tertiary space. Nai Huofeng had escaped to the tertiary space exactly to prevent it from chasing him. The tertiary space was so dangerous that both would very likely die, even if the Lord of the Deep Caves managed to kill him first. Well, Sui Ping's expression had a dramatic change when he saw that happen on the battlefield. Nai Huofeng had been defeated. He had also escaped. The rampant curse-winged beast, the Lord of the Deep Caves, was left behind. Sui Ping felt like his head was about to explode. The possibility that worried him most had come to pass. Nai Huofeng lost. Damn it, damn it! Without saying a word, Sui Ping turned around and ran. Whoosh! He rushed at the highest speed possible and flashed consecutively. Just run! While flashing away, Sui Ping roared at Ye Wuxiu and the others who were still rooted on the spot while standing at the rear. Those people hadn't realized what was going on yet, they were completely intimidated by the great battle. Gu Siping, who was at the moment fighting the beast tide, was going to berate Sui Ping after hearing his roar. Are you going to defect? Do you want to be sentenced to death? But the next moment, he suddenly realized what was going on, which was as if cold water were poured over his head. There could be only one reason for Sui Ping to be running away. He raised his head. At the same time, the curse-winged beast also lowered its head to look down at Gu Siping with its ferocious and murderous eyes. Gu Siping instantly began to tremble as if he were in the freezing cold. He found that Nai Huofeng was not in the secondary space anymore. What? On the other hand, Sui Ping was already running. That was his only option. It was impossible for him to fight against a star state enemy who was a major level above him. Even though this star state enemy was wounded, it would be impossible for him to defeat it. Run! I've got to get back to the store. I'll be safe there. Those were Sui Ping's only thoughts. He was willing to save others and shoulder more responsibilities if possible, but how could he save anyone if he also perished? He didn't want to die. Even though he had died countless times in the cultivation site, that only made him cherish his life even more. He knew how important his life was. He had been through the agony of death again and again exactly because he didn't want to die in real life, because he would be completely gone after dying once. Boom! Moving at full speed, Sui Ping was within the walled perimeter in the blink of an eye. He had already recalled the Inferno Dragon and the Dark Dragon Hound to the contract's space. That was the advantage of the system's contract, which had a much greater effective range than the traditional contracts used on the Blue Planet. Back in the field, Ye Wuxiu and the others also realized what had just happened the moment Sui Ping roared at them. All their faces turned pale. Nai Huofeng had been defeated. That meant that they were doomed. Run! Yuexia was the first to turn around and follow Suoping. Staying there would be suicide. After having witnessed the might of the Star State in the recent battle, they knew that they weren't different from bugs in front of the enemy. Even if they were to sacrifice themselves, it would be impossible to shake the horrifying Lord of the Deep Caves. Many legendary warriors turned around and fled. Unfortunately, some had a mental breakdown and stood where they were, abandoning their struggle. Ji Yuanfeng also ran. He didn't want to die. He would rather be humanity's sole survivor. No, Gu Siping realized what was going on and wanted to flee, but he found that he was frozen. Then, he saw that the horrifying shadow stepped out of the secondary space. An enormous claw shadowed everything and caught Gu Siping. "Spare me, please spare me. I'm willing to do anything. I can serve you. I know the locations of ultimate treasures that you can surely get with your might. I can take you there." Gu Siping was terrified that his eyes almost popped out as he looked at the giant head that was getting closer and closer. He had completely lost his majestic demeanor when he commanded the battle earlier, and his usual manners as the Tower Master. He abandoned all his disguise and pride since he was caught in a real desperate situation, a life and death horror. He became as humble as an ant, hoping that he could inspire some pity and survive by doing that. He really didn't want to die. "Nai Huofeng has run away, so I'll quench my fury with your blood," declared the curse-winged beast. Another important reason why he didn't hunt Nai Huofeng was that it was determined to wipe out human beings, the species that stepped over its head for 1,000 years from the face of that planet. Besides, it had something else to take. 1,000 years worth of astral power. It didn't believe that Nai Huofeng would quell the urge to compete for it when the astral power was released. It was impossible for the guy to quickly heal his heavy wounds in the tertiary space. He would be killed the moment he stepped out. After thinking about that, the grand creature became even more earnest. It roared, "Relay my order to all my subjects. Stampede over them." Its roar traveled through hundreds of kilometers. Even the beast tides in the other 3 directions heard the loud and majestic roar. Such a loud call alerted all the people who were behind the defense lines. All their expressions changed. The wild beast had survived the great battle, and the human who fought it had escaped. Who could possibly stop it now? The height of the curse-winged beast alone was devastating enough. The walls that humans had built were only 600 meters tall, which only reached its waist. The 600 meters was already the best defensive altitude that the specialists had calculated, and it wasn't easy to build the walls. The people behind the defense lines were so frightened that they couldn't think, just by considering the prospect of facing the Lord of the Deep Caves, which looked like an unparalleled devil. Many of them were even wailing in desperation. In the other 3 directions. "It's the boss's voice." The battle noises could only have been caused by the boss. It said that a star stage expert might be hidden among the humans. So, has it already killed the man? Horrifying, time to charge. Ha ha ha. Those ants don't have much meat, but they probably won't taste bad if we eat several of them at the same time. Kill them all. Kill them all. The beast tides in the other directions became excited. They charged under the command of the Fate State beasts and rumbled toward the human settlement. The updates related to those beast tides were instantly transmitted to the tower. The highest priority alarm resounded in the intelligence department. The beast tides on the other sides are also taking action. There are no more legendary warriors. All of them are running. We're doomed. Some of the clerks who were responsible for delivering reports inside the intelligence center were devastated. How could they fight against enemies when the legendary warriors were fleeing? They could see the 1,000-meter-tall beast from their workplace in the base city. Was it really something that human beings could defeat? All the warriors behind the defense lines had lost their will to fight. They had completely lost hope. However, some people were still shining and burning. They summoned all their astral power and were ready to fight. "I'm going to have them pay a heavy price even if I must die. I'll make sure that at least one of them dies with me." Kill them! The roars gradually woke up some of the desperate people. Soon after, the battle pet warriors on the walls gathered the last bit of their strength and prepared for their last stand. Whoosh! Someone was quickly traversing the sky, who was none other than Suaping. He had already returned to the walls before anyone else realized what was going on. He sprinted from the walls, and then returned to the Longjiang base city behind the defense lines. He went straight back to his shop. Right behind Suaping, the other legendary warriors had also made an awkward escape, back to the walls. The battle pet warriors on the walls had hope again when they saw them arrive. Someone roared, "Legendary warriors, let's fight together! Legendary warriors, please protect us! Legendary warriors, let's fight together!" Their roars made all the arriving legendary warriors show awful looks. Yuan Tianchen heard the plea of a titled warrior who wore a military uniform, right when he was flying past. He felt despondent as he flashed away. How could he possibly fight the enemy if the first-generation Tower Master couldn't? Didn't they see how monstrous the Lord of the Deep Caves was? Who could defeat it? The only option was to run. Many legendary warriors ignored their pleas and ran to the back of the defense lines, ready to look for opportunities to escape from the hopeless battle. However, they weren't sure if they could really make it out. Hearing the imploring battle pet warriors, Shui Yunzhen gritted her teeth and stopped. *CK, I'm done running. We can't even run away. I'll just fight them. Her beautiful legs came to a sudden halt in midair and landed on the walls. She felt depressed when people expressed their gratitude. As it turned out, the battle pet warriors who weren't even at the legendary level were actually more determined to fight. They might be acting fearless because they didn't know how strong their enemies were. Nevertheless, their fighting will was still motivating. Why bother running if it was impossible to escape? Yan Yuxiu's expression quickly changed when Shui Yunzhen stopped. He roared, "What are you doing? Planning on killing yourself? How can you fight that Star State beast? There are so many Fate State beasts too. Let's break out of here with Boss Soul later. At least some of us will survive. Do you really want humankind to be eradicated?" Shui Yunzhen was stunned. She looked awful. "We need you. In any case, we have to break out." On the other hand, Xiang Fengguan flew past Shui Yunzhen and turned his head angrily. "We're not running, we're simply rushing for a new hope. No matter how other people see us, we cannot let the embers die out." Burning embers. Were they scared of death? Yes, they were, but they were also ready to sacrifice themselves at any moment. They were all prepared to die, especially after having been stationed at the deep caves for years. While staying behind to fight was brave, it would destroy the last hope of humankind. Bloodlines and seeds of fire had to be passed on. Shui Yunzhen bit her lips so hard that blood came out. She raised her head and looked at the passionate eyes around her. Then she gritted her teeth and said, "Sorry, but I have to go." If she had to die, she just hoped that her death could be valuable. She was going to be the last guardian of humankind. "Legend, please go. Legend, we're here to cover your retreat. You're not defectors, you're heroes. Yes, Legend, you should go. We will hold this place with our flesh and blood." What made Shui Yunzhen shiver was that no one responded with angry curses, all of them were voices of sincerity and understanding. The other battle pet warriors had heard what Xiang Fengguan and Yao Yuxiu had said, and knew of their determination. They knew that the legendary warriors weren't running, it was a last-ditch effort for humankind. Why would they force such heroes? Shui Yunzhen's eyes were wet. She suddenly thought that her hundreds of years of fighting in the deep caves were worth it. For the land and the people she loved, her devotion was worth it. "Let's go." There were no farewells nor any other words. Shui Yunzhen gritted her teeth and dashed behind the defense lines. She seemed to be running, but she also looked like a hero that never looked back. The bald legendary warrior who had planned to keep her company instantly followed her. The many battle pet warriors nearby didn't ask the fleeing legendary warriors to stay anymore. They instead unleashed their astral power and summoned their battle pets, ready for the last battle of their lives. In the Longjiang base city behind the defense lines, Suoping had a white pallor once he returned to his shop. He quickly looked around and found a few people in the shop's safe area. Suoping stepped into the shore and quickly said to Tang Ruin and Sol Lingyu, "Inform Qin Dehuang and the others, ask them to evacuate and move into this place immediately. Also tell your family to send the women and children over. They'll be safe here." His body was shivering. Although he knew he wouldn't get killed thanks to the protection of the system, he could easily imagine the cataclysm that was about to happen. It would be hell beyond the shop. Both Tang Ruin and Sol Lingyu were shocked by what Suoping told them. They had seen the shocking Star State battle outside. After seeing Suoping's condition as he arrived, they realized it was impossible for him to save the day anymore. However, Suoping's words confused them somewhat. This shop could work as a shelter when they were already doomed? Is it because Joanna is in the shop? But if Joanna was capable of slaying the Lord of the Deep Caves, why couldn't she just go out and kill it? A confused Sol Lingyu was about to ask him, "Brother." She had already seen how that mysterious shop was quite important to her brother. She also never knew where he found pets to sell. "Don't ask, just do it!" Suoping suddenly roared. Time is life. This motto fitted perfectly in that scenario. Time was of the essence. Both women were dazed by Suoping's roar. It was a first for them to see him that anxious. Not daring to ask or think, they quickly took out their phones and contacted the relevant people. The place was probably safe since Suoping claimed that it was. Even if it wasn't, gathering them at the store was better than letting them die in other places. While they talked on the phone, Suoping quickly reached out to Xiejin Shui, Yan Yuxiu, Li Yuanfeng and the others, asking them to go to his shop. Fortunately, his shop had just been upgraded with virtual arenas, which doubled the shop's area. The shop's footprint had expanded to the 2 blocks nearby. The area was enough to accommodate 10,000 people if it was crammed. Let's not forget that the area was 3-dimensional, the air within 100 meters above the shop was also safe. So, if the survivors were stacked like goods, at least 100,000 people could be packed. 100,000 people was just a drop in the bucket compared to the total population behind the defense lines, but that was the best Suoping could do at this moment. Some of the calls didn't go through, and some did. Suoping quickly informed those who picked up the call and then hung up to immediately contact the next person. He contacted everybody he knew. As for those whom he didn't even have their numbers to try and alert them. Very soon, one person came after another. Some were titled warriors, and some were of legendary rank. Mr. Su, Brother Su, Yan Yuxiu, Li Yuanfeng and some of the others arrived. Void State warriors could travel by flashing, so they arrived first. Yan Yuxiu asked quickly, "Did you summon us here because you have an escape route?" His eyes were full of hope, as Suoping had shown a high combat ability that was only second to Naihuo Feng's. If Suoping worked with them and marched in single file, there was hope for them to break out as long as the Lord of the Deep Caves didn't get there in time. He was willing to sacrifice himself even if Suoping was the only one of them who survived. Suoping was already only weaker than the Star State experts. He might enter the Star State someday if he trained himself in a secret realm, then he would be able to avenge them. Mr. Su, Xiang Fengran, Shui Yunzhen and some others arrived at that moment. Qin Dehuang and Zhou Tianlin got there right behind them, still merged with their battle pets and using their abilities. The empty streets were instantly filled with their powerful auras. "Boss Su, we'll protect you. Let's fight our way out." Qin Dehuang looked at Suoping with glowing eyes. The powerful aura and fighting spirit he released made him look dozens of years younger. He meant what he said and was ready to deliver on his promise. His battle pet was Suoping's gift, and he became a legendary warrior mostly because of the understanding brought by the Beast King pet that Suoping had given him, he had always said he owed Suaping a favor and committed that to memory. Now, it was time to repay it. Mr. Su. Zhou Tianlin also said. He stared at Suaping with regret and determination in his eyes. He had just become a legendary warrior. He wanted to live and enjoy the new level, however, there was no time nor hope. He only wished he could do something with his remaining power. Everybody fixed their eyes on Suaping. Far in the distance, Suaping's parents walked to the store, also with troubled expressions. "Pinger, no need to care about us," said Li Qingru, his mother. Her eyes were full of love, affection, and comfort. Next to her, his father Su Yuanshan remained silent, but he could feel his father's deep love for him. After seeing them arrive, Suaping took a deep breath and said, "We're not going anywhere. This shop is the safest place." The shop was caught in a moment of silence. A few seconds later, everybody had finally realized what he meant and looked at Suaping in shock. They were going to stay right there? Yao Yuxiu couldn't help but ask, "Boss Su, are you serious? We're just going to stay here and wait for death." On the other hand, Qin Duhuang and Zhou Tianlin were dazed for a moment. They knew Suaping longer and better, and they knew how horrifying his shop was. After all, it was probably the only shop in the world where void state pets were available all the time. They also remembered that Suaping's shop was being supervised by a blonde legendary woman. Could she protect them? But soon, they had exactly the same question as Tang Ruyan and Solingyu did. If the woman was able to resist the Lord of the Deep Caves, why couldn't she fight outside? While everybody seemed astounded and even angry, Suaping knew it was impossible for him to explain. He quickly found an excuse, "Don't be hasty. There's an ancient divine formation in my shop, which is able to resist even star state attacks. So, no wild beasts can break into my shop." Everybody was shocked upon hearing that. An ancient divine formation able to fend off star state enemies? They observed the shop behind Suaping again, not expecting it to have such a miraculous capability. Shui Yunzhen quickly thought of something and said, "However, even if we hide and they can't kill us, they can still surround us, we won't be able to go anywhere." Although she seemed like a careless tigress, she was actually quite thoughtful. The other people's smiles were instantly frozen. That was very true. Even if the wild beasts couldn't break in, humans would also be unable to go out, starvation would eventually hit them. Even if legendary warriors had the option to sustain themselves on astral power alone, what if the Lord of the Deep Caves were to loot all the astral power nearby? Then, the legendary warriors would also die of old age. That method was only a slower way of dying. Suaping was going to talk, when the system suddenly spoke in his head, "It's useless." Suaping instantly changed his expression. The system had peeped into his thoughts again. He was going to soothe everybody by telling them that he could teleport the shop away from that place. Why is it useless? Suaping demanded furiously in his heart. The system, however, didn't answer with the usual lazy attitude. It said with a cold tone, "Even though you have been given a chance to relocate your shop after it's upgraded to level 4, the rule is that it can only be sent to a place with enough customers. Only the range behind the defense lines meets the requirement at the moment. So, even if you relocate it, you can only relocate within the range protected by the defense lines." Suaping was surprised. What kind of bull's *it rule is that? He was exasperated. It would be possible to relocate elsewhere if you had enough residents in other places. However, the global population is all concentrated here, replied the system, ignoring Suaping's wrath. Suaping said angrily in his heart, "Why didn't you remind me sooner? Aren't you always reading my thoughts? Why didn't you tell me that my plan couldn't work? Besides, don't you want to make money? So many people are dying. According to you, they're all potential customers. Then, shouldn't you do me a favor and help me rescue them?" The system said solemnly, "Taking care of customers is your responsibility, not mine. Bastard! Sua Ping gritted his teeth and lost his cool. But he knew that it wasn't the system's fault, he was simply being too impatient. Xiang Fengran frowned and called him tentatively, Boss Su. Sua Ping seemed about to talk, then his expressions changed haphazardly and he looked angry, which made the others feel confused and uneasy. Sua Ping came back to his senses and finally said, I'm fine. Even if we can't go out, they can't come in either. We can cultivate here until we're strong enough to go out and defeat them. Xiang Fengran and the others were briefly stunned upon hearing that. They looked at Sua Ping, certain that he was the one with the greatest hope to reach the star state. No. It would be impossible to cultivate here if the Lord of the Deep Caves absorbs the astral power nearby, said Shui Yunzhen while shaking her head. Everybody's expressions changed, that was indeed a problem. Qin Duhuang, however, said after a few seconds of silence, in that case, we can release the astral power in our bodies for Boss Su. Everybody was quite shocked to hear that. Release our astral power for Sua Ping to cultivate here? That was indeed a solution. After considering the idea, Shui Yunzhen looked at Qin Duhuang with appreciation in her glittering eyes. Sua Ping, however, trembled and felt like he was about to be choked by tears. Releasing the astral power in their bodies would mean that they would lose their cultivation. He slightly gritted his teeth. He knew that he didn't need their astral power, not when he had his cultivation sites, but he found their selflessness overwhelming. More and more people gathered as they talked. Ji Yuanfeng and the deputy chief were both there. Sua Ping was the only hope for a breakthrough. They wanted to join Sua Ping and break out of there together. They knew they had gone to the right place upon seeing Ye Wuxiu, Xiang Fengran and the other legendary warriors in Sua Ping's shop. Yuan Tianchen and the other group of legendary warriors joined them. They had stayed on the surface all the time and never saw eye to eye with Sua Ping, but they also showed up. Their only hope was Sua Ping. Everyone felt assured after seeing all the strong experts gathered. They had found the community of the best fighters. Brother Su. Mr. Su. Ji Yuanfeng greeted Sua Ping and said, give us a route. Let's march out together. Sua Ping was going to talk, when noises of wind moving were heard, titled warriors riding flying pets were arriving. The backs of all the battle pets were filled with many women and children. All of them belonged to the Tang family. Sua Ping and the Tang family had already made peace. In fact, their conflict wasn't too serious. The Tang family had challenged Sua Ping while intending to take back their young mistress. However, Sua Ping had killed several titled warriors in a row and eliminated a legion of 2,000 master pet warriors. The Tang family suffered a heavy loss. The Tangs had offered an apology and compensation afterwards. That was it. Sua Ping had never been a petty man. With Tang Ruyan as an intermediary and since she had been appointed as the leader of the family, Sua Ping was even less interested in getting back at them. His shop was a shelter, but nobody knew that. He wanted more people to come, it would be a waste if the shop was left empty. They're here, said Tang Ruyan in relief after seeing the members of the Tang family. She was familiar with Sua Ping and bought the ancient divine formation fib when Sua Ping mentioned it, because she believed that the man would never make empty promises. Whoosh! 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 The titled members of the Tang family leaped off their flying pets and were all shocked to see the many legendary warriors at Sua Ping's shop. Members of the Tang family pay respect to you, Mr. Su. Members of the Tang family pay respect to you, Mr. Su. All of them landed and dropped to one knee, paying respect to him in the most courteous way. Sua Ping was strong enough to make them kneel voluntarily. After all, he was a top legendary warrior who deserved their respect. Tang Linzhen, former leader of the Tang family, apologizes to you. Tang Yuanqing, elder of the Tang family, apologizes to you. Several men dashed out of the crowd. Tang Ruyan's father, and the previous leader of the Tang family also half-knelt and lowered their heads. Behind him was the elder of the Tang family who had previously attacked Sua Ping. Although Suaping had let bygones be bygones, those people had always been worried that he might hold a grudge. Tang Ruyu of the Tang family apologizes to you. A short girl, who was already at the titled rank, also moved out from the crowd and fell on one knee with her head lowered. It was quite a shocking scene. Ji Yuanfeng, Ye Wuxiu and the others were confused, not sure about what was going on. Suaping looked at the familiar faces. Having already dissolved all grievances, he waved his hand and said, "You may rise. We're in the middle of a crisis, bring them to my shop immediately." In the next moment, Tang Linzhen, Tang Ruyu, and the others all felt an irresistible force that made them stand up straight again. This only increased their sense of awe. What Suaping said next reassured them. It seemed that Suaping no longer cared about the Tang's previous offense anymore. They were all excited by that, as if a shadow in their hearts had finally been dispersed. "Hurry, hurry!" Tang Linzhen quickly waved his hands and asked the women and children of his family to settle down. Ji Yuanfeng was confused by their actions and could only ask, "Brother Su, what are you doing? We're not leaving." Suaping looked at Ji Yuanfeng, whom he didn't dislike. "There's an ancient divine formation in my shop, one that not even the Lord of the Deep Caves can destroy. You'll be safe as long as you stay inside my shop. Come on in now." Ji Yuanfeng was quite shocked. Yuan Tianchen and the other legendary warriors were equally astounded. When did Suaping master such a horrifying formation? Yuan Tianchen looked at the shop behind Suaping. He had almost been stabbed through by the blonde woman inside on his past visit. He found that Suaping's shop looked even more splendid than before. His expression changed when he remembered the blonde woman, as fear still haunted him. What confused him was that he didn't see the blonde woman in the battle. It was slightly weird that Suaping took part in the battle but without sending her out. Did he consider the woman's safety more important than his own? At that moment, more people were dashing over. They were Liu Qiu, Shi Hokai and other people from the Trainers Association. There was also the president of the Trainers Association, who was accompanied by two old men. One of them was a bright blue-haired person from the Roaring Thunder continent, and the other was from the Dragon Swamp continent, with bright golden hair and a chiseled face. Suaping could easily tell from their vibe that they were Holy Spirit trainers just like the president of the Trainers Association. Mr. Su. Legend Su. They were all delighted to see the legendary warriors at the shop, thinking that they were planning on pooling their strength to break out with everyone present. "Help me settle them down and summon more men over," said Suaping to Qin Dehuang and the others. He then rose to the sky and gathered flames on his fingertip. He raised his hand as he looked down at the shop. PFF, PFF, PFF. The compressed flames on his fingertip were shot out like a laser, drawing a circle that marked the safe area. After the drawing was completed, Suaping landed and said, "Ask everybody to enter the area within the circle and never step out." Qin Dehuang and Ye Wuxiu accepted his command and fetched more people. "Stay in the shop," said Suaping to Solingyu and his parents, then he quickly ran out. No more than 100,000 people were there yet. He needed to get more people. Beep. Suddenly, Suaping's phone rang. He saw that it was Xiejin Shui whom he had failed to reach earlier. He picked up the call and said, "Old Xiet, come to my shop immediately. Also inform others to come, my shop is protected by a divine formation and can resist the beast tides." Su. Xiejin Shui had just said one word and was going to explain why he missed Suaping's call, but then registered what Suaping had told him and was shocked. "Got it," he quickly responded and accepted the offer. Suaping quickly dashed out after hanging up. Soon after he saw a car driving over with several acquaintances riding it. Su Kuang, who called him master all the time, and his sister were among them. The other passengers seemed older than them, they looked like their parents and relatives. Su Kuang was excited to see Suaping in the sky. He instantly cried, "Master! Go to my shop!" Suaping instantly shouted. Then, he flew further away. Still inside the car, Su Kuang was stunned for a moment, then a middle-aged man in the back seat asked in shock, "He's your master?" Su Kuang nodded quickly. "Yes. That's how I've always called him." "Then, did he accept you as a disciple?" Su Kuang quickly shouted, "Hey, stop asking questions. Sister, let's go to my master's shop, he asked us to wait for him there. He's going to take us out." While at the driver's seat, Su Yingxu rolled her eyes. Su Ping didn't mention anything about taking anyone out of anywhere. However, given the great crisis, she hoped that what her not-so-reliable brother said was true. Su Ping flew a dozen kilometers and asked everybody he met to go to his shop. As for people further away, he simply carried them to his shop with astral power. He later found that the shop was almost full when he returned. Then, the other survivors would have to be stashed on top of them. Boom! Right when Su Ping was going to ask Ye Wuxiu and Qin Dehuang to make the necessary arrangements, an ear-splitting explosion burst out. The expressions of all the legendary warriors in and out of Su Ping's shop changed. They already knew it would happen, but it wasn't any less shocking when it really took place. The walls outside of the defense lines were destroyed. The Lord of the Deep Cave's enormous body had crossed the two outer walls and passed the defense lines. Many Fate State behemoths and some Ocean State beasts had appeared in the other parts of the defense lines. The Beast Kings were marching unimpeded since the legendary warriors had retreated. Far away, Su Ping and the others could almost hear the screams. They shivered as the beasts surged in like a flood. They didn't need to look to know that the battlefield in the front line was already an inferno. Su Ping's body was as sturdy as that of one in the Fate State. His eyesight was so good that he could even see the battle pet warriors on the walls. Although several holes had been left on the walls, a lot of battle pet warriors were fighting where the walls still stood. The skills they released were extremely feeble. They looked like fireflies, causing no damage at all when they struck the Beast Kings. However, for some reason, Su Ping shed tears. Next to him, Ye Wuxiu and the other legends also fell silent. They clenched their fists with bloodshot eyes. Roar! 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 Ear-splitting roars echoed in all directions. The defense lines had been overtaken one after the other. The beast tides attacked all four directions, and the defense lines were easily torn apart, as if they were made of paper. Whoosh! Far in the distance, dozens of shadows were moving closer. All of them were battle pet warriors. Su Ping and the others were shocked. They quickly flashed out and caught the thrown battle pet warriors. Some beasts had already reached the Longjiang base city. The Fate State Beast Kings that were hundreds of meters high were able to easily crush the city walls and break in. The beasts trailing behind them inundated the city through the openings. Cries and screams were coming from all directions. Apocalypse was at hand. While the beasts were charging, Su Ping saw a lot of titled warriors riding battle pets and carrying passengers. They seemed to be moving to Su Ping's shop. They arrived soon after, and were able to relax when they saw Su Ping, Ji Yuanfeng, and the other legendary warriors. Some of them dropped to their knees upon seeing Su Ping and begged in fear, "Please help us." Not all of them were from the Longjiang base city, some had been relocated from other places. Xiejin Shui had released the news, which was then delivered to the command center. Then, the people who received the message in other areas rushed over to Su Ping's shop. The survivors of other continents who didn't know where the shop was could only ask other people or wait to die. Su Ping asked Ji Yuanfeng and the others to help the new arrivals to settle down. A battle pet of the rock class appeared after a resounding boom. It belonged to Xiang Fengran, who gave it an instruction. The soil immediately began to move. Thin rock plates rose inside the circle that Su Ping had drawn and covered his shop. Then, the rock plates were separated into different layers and formed a massive cube. The cube looked like an enormous container with many compartments inside, all to accommodate as many survivors as possible. "Hurry up! Have everybody go inside," said Su Ping in haste. Those who had just arrived were sent to the compartments. Some of the newcomers didn't know what was going on, simply joining the others. After all, they were willing to follow a legendary warrior's arrangement. Roar! A noise burst out. Far in the distance, a group of several dozen people who were on the way to take shelter were slapped by a rock claw that emerged from the soil, taking all their lives. Su Ping, Ji Yuan Feng and the others were all grim. More deafening noises echoed. The Beast Kings were right there, inside the base city. Stop now! All of a sudden, Shui Yunzhen, who was patrolling in the sky, burst into a fit of fury and dashed out. There was a group of ordinary people including men, women and children on a street a dozen kilometers away, and they were facing a hideous 8th-rank wild beast. The seemingly hungry creature stuck out its long and mucus-lined tongue. All those humans were distressed. Boom! Flashing consecutively, Shui Yunzhen suddenly appeared above the 8th-rank wild beast and stepped on it. The ground exploded, and the wild beast was pulverized into a mist of blood. Shui Yunzhen looked at the stunned humans, then carried them with astral power and declared, "Follow me." She was going to take them to Su Ping's shop. However, a sharp claw was suddenly extended from the void and, with a deafening boom, smashed the ordinary people she had just lifted into pieces. The children were also smashed into a pulp. Shui Yunzhen's eyes widened. Then, she felt as if all her blood was rising to her head. With bloodshot eyes, she roared, "Ah!" Her astral power burst out, and she attacked the giant claw. The body behind the giant claw was fully revealed. It was a mountainous fate-state demon king. It had white fur and resembled a polar bear. The beast looked down at Shui Yunzhen and grinned. "Not bad. This is a delicious one." The next moment, Shui Yunzhen sensed that the space around her had been locked. Her pupils contracted, but she simply let out an angrier roar. A vortex appeared next to her and she merged with her battle bet. She then unleashed bolts of scorching lightning. Her powerful constitution belonged to the Thunder family. At that moment she performed an ancient secret technique to enhance her constitution. She released thousands of light streaks that caused a crack on the locked space. When she was about to run, a giant claw fell down and blocked her way. However, exactly at that moment, a brilliant sword aura appeared and chopped the giant claw apart. Su Ping arrived where Shui Yunzhen was. His black hair was dancing, and his eyes were filled with killing intent and fury. The fate-state demon king was greatly appalled to see Su Ping. It didn't expect that the base city it had invaded turned out to be the place where Su Ping was located. Overwhelmed by panic, it quickly tore space apart and escaped. Su Ping intended to kill it, but it managed to escape. No longer trying to give pursuit, he said to Shui Yunzhen, "Go back to the shop." Shui Yunzhen looked at him. Su Ping soon changed his expression and flashed away before she could thank him. Boom! 2 Ocean State Beast Kings were chasing a group of titled warriors on the street. Su Ping got there and slashed at them. Sword auras surged out, and he killed the 2 Ocean State Beast Kings on the spot. He didn't use the Void Sword as it wasn't necessary. Su Ping took the titled warriors back to the shop, only to discover it was almost full. More survivors in the distance were approaching his shop. Su Ping looked awful. Ji Yuan Feng, Yan Yuxiu and the others also noticed this. They asked Su Ping, "What do we do? What should he do?" Su Ping knew the answer, but he couldn't say it out loud. What else could he do? There wasn't enough space. They could only be abandoned. However, "Help! Help me!" At a distance, several battle pet warriors cried for help while riding their battle pets, but king-level flying wild beasts soon passed by and squeezed them into pieces. On another street, a private car was racing for dear life under the pursuit of a 5th-rank wild beast. Boom! Buildings were collapsing further away, some were destroyed by wild beasts, and some collapsed due to aftershocks. The 2 walls in the distance had been completely breached. There were multiple openings, which made it look like an inverted rake. A swarm of wild beasts were marching through the openings. Was this the apocalypse? Nothing but deaths could be seen, nothing but moans and screams could be heard, and nothing but blood and its stench could be smelled. Scenes that were only expected in hell were happening in reality, right before everyone's eyes. All humans were crying in desperation. "My lord, please help me! My lord!" More and more people had arrived at Sua Ping's shop through the wild beasts entanglement. All of them were airborne, most of them were titled warriors, while some were advanced battle pet warriors with flying pets. Many of them had brought their families with them, who were mostly ordinary people. At ground level, cars were also driving over and blocked the nearby streets. All of them were abandoning their vehicles and running to Sua Ping's shop. They found a sense of safety when they saw Sua Ping and the other legendary warriors. However, the consecutive explosions and screams behind them was scaring them out of their wits. Sua Ping's face was covered in the shadow, there was no telling what his expression was. The shop behind him was already crowded. All the rooms had been crammed. As for his parents, So Lingyu, and all his close acquaintances, he had asked Joanna to take them to the pet room, which was also full. There was no more space. Ji Yuanfeng and the others had awful looks, as too many survivors had shown up. After all, there were billions of people behind the defense lines, a mere 1% of them was enough to fill up the neighborhood. Ji Yuanfeng understood Sua Ping's silence, the situation was beyond their control. Ji Yuanfeng looked at everybody and said with a sigh, "Sorry, there are no more vacancies." All the survivors who had reached the place were stupefied. With an even greater fear on their faces, some of them fell on their knees and kowtowed loudly. "Please, my lord, please save us! Please!" The titled warriors who were midair were also kneeling in panic. Everywhere Zhu Yuanfeng looked, people were imploring him, which made him look quite bad. There was nothing he could do. The people in Sua Ping's shop looked at those outside who were on their knees, pleading for help. Some felt lucky that they had gotten there early, while others had troubling feelings. Someone suddenly declared in the midst of those cries, "I'll give away my spot. I can still fight." A brawny man walked out of Sua Ping's shop. He was quite average looking, someone who wouldn't have been noticed at all in a crowd. But at this moment, he squeezed through the crowd and walked out. Everybody looked at him. He was a battle pet warrior, but only a 7th rank one. "Please take care of my wife and my children." The brawny man looked at Sua Ping in the sky and kowtowed. He then rose and walked to a woman who was holding a baby in her arms. "Go inside with your baby." The woman was an ordinary person. She was quite surprised that she would eventually be saved. The next moment, her tears flowed out, and she was about to kneel at him. The brawny man stopped her in time. He then looked at the man next to her, who was evidently her husband. "Sorry, I only have one spot," said the old man. The man quickly shook his head and said gratefully, "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much." He said countless thanks in a row, his gratitude was genuine. "Go inside," the brawny man urged her. Her husband stopped offering thanks and quickly urged her to go. The woman looked at her husband affectionately while carrying her child, then she ran to Sua Ping's shop in the end. She was accepted by the crowd inside. At that moment, the shop had become an ark that carried the hope of life. After a brief silence inspired by the brawny man's valiant action, the men in the shop declared one after the other, "I can give away my spot. I can fight too. I am a titled warrior. I can't live like a coward. My child, your father can't accompany you anymore. I'll fight for you. Tell our child that his father never flinched. Never." One man after the other stepped out of the shop. Some were old, some young. Some wavered, but the remnants of hot blood in their hearts were reignited when they saw other men stepping out. They also walked out with the others. However, there were still some men who kept their heads lowered. They didn't dare to look around, nor to go out and be sacrificed. There were again many vacancies as those men walked out of the shop. Some of the people who were pleading on their knees outside were stunned by this. Some of the titled warriors who were begging were also motivated. All of them stood up with a scorching battle spirit in their eyes. Other men were giving away the hope of life. It was truly demeaning for them to keep begging on their knees. They couldn't accept such ugliness, so they decided to pick up their dignity again. On the other side, more people saw the vacancies and hope. They swarmed closer and begged even more vehemently. Next to him was a lovely little girl, who was shaking his arm and trying to stop him from kowtowing. Her tears were heartbreaking. "My lord, please let my wife in. She's pregnant." Some titled warriors moved closer and fell on their knees with bloodshot eyes, before they implored humbly, "I'm willing to be your slave and forever work for you in my next life. Please." More and more people were approaching. Some wanted to go into the shelter, while others wanted to send their families in. Su Ping's face was covered in the shadow. All the begging around him was too loud to be unheard. Ji Yuanfeng and the others were sitting next to Su Ping, all of them looked horrible. Given Su Ping's lack of response, Ji Yuanfeng gritted his teeth and made a decision. He pointed at the man who escorted his pregnant wife and allowed her to go in. The titled warrior was so thrilled by Ji Yuanfeng's approval that he quickly kowtowed and said gratefully, Thank you, my lord. I'll definitely repay your favor if I have a next life." "Go now," Ji Yuanfeng quickly said and then pointed at some people in the crowd. Those people were mostly women and children. Ji Yuanfeng saw a lot of old people too, but after a moment's hesitation, he decided to leave hope to the next generation. The shop was soon crowded again when those people flooded in. There were a lot more women and children who were pleading to be saved. Although they only took up 1/3 of the population present, their number was still astonishing. After all, almost 10 million people had gathered, and half of the district had been filled up. Seeing that the begging worked, more and more people kowtowed and did the same, which made Ji Yuanfeng look bad. He knew that there wasn't enough space to save all of them. Furthermore, more humans were waiting to be rescued in places that they couldn't see. At that moment, all the legendary warriors present were silent. They had proudly enjoyed people's awe and respect in the past. And yet, they felt like they were roosters that had just lost a fight at the moment. While facing that cataclysm, they could only watch their compatriots fall. They wanted to save those people, but they were incapable of saving any. They couldn't even save themselves without Su Ping's shelter. Sad. The deepest sadness. Suddenly, a rough yet confident voice came from the safe area in the shop. "Men of the Tang family, come out with me." Then, a muscular middle-aged man struggled to squeeze through the crowd. He was Tang Linzhen, the former leader of the Tang family. Following his command, a lot of men trailed behind him and exited the shop. Most of them were young, but some were old and others were just teenagers. The youngest didn't even seem to have hit 20 yet, and the oldest already had white hair. "Then men of the Tang family can still fight," roared Tang Linzhen. His loud voice echoed in the shop and stunned everybody. Amidst the crowd in the shop, Tang Ruyan fell into a daze as she looked at the back of the man who had just walked out of the shop. Her old memories suddenly flashed back, and she suddenly remembered how the same man had warmly helped her get back to her feet every time she fell when she was little. However, the man changed the moment she became a substitute. He had always scolded her, asking her to try harder. "Father!" She felt she was on the verge of tears. All her anger and disappointment faded away. "Hey!" Hovering in the sky, Qin Dehuang and Zhou Tianlin looked at him in astonishment, not expecting the old leader of the Tang family to be man enough to stay willingly. Everybody knew that staying outside meant certain death. "Thank you, Mr. Su, for protecting the female members of the Tang family. This is the least I can do," said Tang Linzhen loudly to Su Ping while clasping his hands. Everybody looked at Su Ping, only to discover it was impossible to see his expression. Su Ping showed no response. Tang Linzhen took a deep breath. He had walked out, both because he was manly, and because he hoped that, after sacrificing himself, Sua Ping would let the female members of the Tang family stay in the shelter. He had been more or less worried about the friction with Sua Ping, which was why he walked out so determinedly. The Tang family would not go extinct as long as the female members survived. He had fulfilled his responsibilities as a leader of the family, he deserved the position his father had entrusted to him years back. While Tang Linzhen was thinking that, he suddenly heard a voice. The women of the Tang family aren't weak either. The voice was high-pitched. It was a girl's voice, but it sounded no less assertive than any man's. A petite girl rushed out of the crowd filling the shop. It was Tang Ruyu. Tang Ruyan, who was still inside the shop, was stunned to see that. Tang Linzhen's expression had a drastic change. He bellowed, "What are you doing? My sister is now leading the Tang family, so I'm not needed anymore." "I'll stay and accompany you," said Tang Ruyu to Tang Linzhen with a solemn tone while staring at him. Her eyes seemed to be saying, "Father, I know what you're thinking, so I'm here with you." "Nonsense," snapped Tang Linzhen. "I've made up my mind." Tang Ruyu stared at him with glittering eyes. Tang Linzhen was stunned, unable to say anything else. The legendary warriors in the sky wore troubled expressions. Some seemed to be admiring the Tang family, and some turned around, as if they were too ashamed to look at them. Exactly at this moment, Qin Duhuang suddenly opened his mouth. "Men of the Qin family, time to come out." The Qin family was the nearest to Sua Ping's shop, so a lot of members of the Qin family were there. A lot of men of different ages strode out after Qin Duhuang said that. "Ha ha ha, I already wanted to come out just now. Is the Tang family really afraid of a battle? The worst possible outcome is death, isn't it? I've been waiting for it since I was born. The Qin family won't be dwarfed by the Tang family." More and more men of the Qin family walked out. Some elders put on a smile and said, "I've lived long enough anyway." After seeing that, Zhou Tianlin gritted his teeth and also roared, "Men of the Zhou family, get out." Many members of the Zhou family instantly ran out, as if they were staying not to be killed, but to be awarded. They were full of pride. Some of the members were hiding in the crowd. Zhou Tianlin saw them and was angry, but he didn't say anything. After all, some of the young men of the Qin family didn't come out either. They were obviously the cowards. Since they were cowards, it would be pointless and humiliating to ask them to come out. 10,000 spaces were emptied after the men of the families walked out. After that took place, Ji Yuanfeng quickly sent the vulnerable groups in. However, the vacancies were soon filled up again. Sua Ping's shop was like a cup, while the people outside were like an ocean. The cup could easily be filled until it overflowed. Most people were still without a spot, they could only wait to die in despair. Seeing that Sua Ping had been silent for a long time, Shui Yunzhen called him uneasily, "Boss Su." Several seconds later, Sua Ping slowly turned his head and looked at her, before he said, "I'm fine." Staring at his face for a while, Shui Yunzhen said in a low voice, "Don't be frustrated. You have tried your best. All of us have. We wouldn't have saved anyone without you. If you must blame someone, just blame the Lord of the Deep Caves for being too strong." Sua Ping's lips twitched slightly, but he didn't say anything. Exactly at that moment, the coldest voice suddenly boomed, "You're all here." The air rippled, and the ocean sovereign stepped out of the void, with her long legs gleaming as attractively as before. Her appearance lowered the temperature in the neighborhood and formed ice on the ground. Everybody changed their expressions. The ocean sovereign has come. She was the toughest fate state wild beast below the star state, and she had made her appearance there. The moment the Empress arrived, multiple void doors emerged behind her, the heavenly king of good and evil, the heavenly king of the other world, seven sins, and the other fate state demon kings walked out. The fate state wild beasts that were in the other directions had mostly gathered around her. They made the buildings in front of them collapse while releasing a horrifying pressure. The humans who had gathered at the shop were so terrified that they were all screaming. The survivors inside the shop were scared, also screaming at the top of their lungs. The terrible monsters that they had usually seen on TV had arrived right in front of their eyes. Adding to that, the TV could only display their image, whereas the monsters in reality were giving off their full presence. Their horrifying aura was almost reaching for the survivors like claws. Many of them were suffocating and trembling with fear. Most had even lost control of their bowels and the place was becoming smelly. Some of them even passed out. It's great that you've gathered. This saves me some time. The Ocean Sovereign looked at everybody, her eyes were briefly fixed on Ji Yuanfeng and Suoping, then she put on a cold smile. Ji Yuanfeng, Yuan Tianchen and the others felt their blood was freezing, they were no match for the Ocean Sovereign, at all. Everybody looked at Suoping, who might be the only person that could fight the Ocean Sovereign. But not even Suoping might be able to defeat her. Let's evacuate, said Ji Yuanfeng, gritting his teeth. They weren't going to hide in the shop anyway, and a fight would be pointless. More importantly, they would never win the fight. Even if Suoping was able to keep the Ocean Sovereign busy, the other Fate State beasts were still too strong, some of them might die while entangled in a fierce fight. The Lord of the Deep Caves was also close, it could arrive in the blink of an eye with its Star State abilities. However, the Lord of the Deep Caves didn't seem to be interested in annihilating them. Instead, it turned around and went to another base city. Suoping took note of its movements, knowing that its aim was to destroy the Heaven Lock. It was obvious that the Lord of the Deep Caves wanted to swallow the 1,000 years' worth of astral power inside the Heaven Lock. Or rather, it was trying to force the heavily wounded Nai Huofeng to show up to kill him. All in all, the Lord of the Deep Caves wasn't paying attention to them. We can fight them, said Suoping thoughtfully after taking a deep breath. If it were a moment earlier, he would have chosen to hide as Ji Yuanfeng suggested, because a fight was absolutely pointless. However, he was greatly touched when the men down below gave away their precious spaces, their sole opportunities of life. Those who were much weaker than him were completely determined to fight. Could he hide and watch them be slaughtered? No, he couldn't. Don't overestimate yourself, said a shocked Ji Yuanfeng after hearing Suoping. Suoping turned around and looked at him gravely. I'm not overestimating myself. I simply don't want to regret it later. Even if I must hide or run, I want to do so knowing that I tried my best first. Other men were overestimating themselves so much that they were basically giving away their lives. Why couldn't he try his best to save some lives and make his contributions in this battle that could annihilate the human race? Ji Yuanfeng was dazed after seeing Suoping's eyes. There's a way to suppress her. Suoping said to Ji Yuanfeng telepathically, while looking at the Ocean Sovereign who was moving closer with an unhurried pace. He was scared of being overheard by her. Ji Yuanfeng's eyes glittered. But soon, he resumed his usual expression and replied telepathically, "What is the method? How can I help?" Since Suoping told it to him, he was definitely needed in the plan. Suoping said, "When I fight her later, can you teleport her to my shop?" Ji Yuanfeng was stunned. He asked in confusion, "To your shop?" "Yes, if she fails to cancel her attack and hits the divine formation in my shop, her attack will be bounced back, that would heavily wound her," said Suoping. The divine formation was a lie, but the effect was real. The Ocean Sovereign would trigger the system's counterattack if she invaded Suoping's shop. In such a case, she would either be wiped out or be suppressed. The problem was how to make her enter the safe area around the shop. The remote attacks that struck the shop would only be nullified, they would not trigger any counterattacks. The system could only suppress lives within the range of the shop. So, the Ocean Sovereign had to enter the area and launch an attack. Otherwise, Suoping would have easily lured her into launching remote attacks and then dodge, so that she would hit the shop and trigger the system's counterattack. The divine formation can bounce off attacks. Ji Yuanfeng was shocked and suspicious. He could believe a divine formation was able to resist star state attacks, but it was rather unbelievable that it could also reflect attacks. Wasn't Suaping invincible on the blue planet if he had such a formation? Can you teleport her? Asked Suaping. Ji Yuanfeng's expression changed. He gritted his teeth and said, I can try, but I'll need other people's help. I think it'll work as long as we catch her unprepared. Suaping nodded. That'll do. Since there was a chance, it was worth a shot. In fact, he had another way to suppress the Ocean Sovereign, which was the special grade beast catching ring he had recently purchased at the cost of 8 million energy points. The special grade beast catching ring could capture fate state wild beasts with a success rate of 80%. It was almost certain that he could catch her as long as he wasn't too unlucky. However, Suaping had given it some thought. He had to save as many people as possible. Therefore, he left the special grade beast catching ring for another plan and intended to deal with the Lord of the Deep Caves with it. After all, the ring had a 10% chance that it could capture star state wild beasts. Here's the plan. Suaping quickly told his idea to Ji Yuanfeng via telepathy. Ji Yuanfeng was slightly surprised by the idea. He quickly nodded and accepted his task. Tisk, tisk. Cutie, we meet again. At this moment, the otherworld Heavenly King cackled among the many fate state beasts behind the Ocean Sovereign. Hearing that, the other fate state beasts couldn't help but look at the Heavenly King, wondering why it knew that horrifying human. Suaping snorted and ignored it. He simply looked at the Ocean Sovereign coldly and said, given your status, you reign over the seas of the blue planet and have the most subjects. And yet you bend before the Lord of the Deep Caves, willingly fight for it. You're pathetic. You are quite talkative for a dying man. The Ocean Sovereign's eyes became cold, and ice blades darted out of the void towards the humans who had come to seek protection. Thousands of them were killed in the blink of an eye. The other humans fled in panic after seeing that. Suaping's expression changed. He declared with cold eyes, don't think I can't do anything to you. I can easily suppress you. Can you really? Why don't you try? The Ocean Sovereign sneered. With your shallow understanding of the power of laws? Let's see which of us is better. Practicing with you is a great way for me to perfect my understanding of laws. You're a rare opponent indeed, I almost can't bear to kill you. Get lost. Suaping roared and charged at her with his sword. The space around him was suddenly twisted. Hundreds of sharp ice blades all made of laws surrounded Suaping at the same time. Suaping's expression changed, all due to the Ocean Sovereign's deep understanding of laws. It wasn't perfect, but it was very close. Her energy was also much more abundant than his. After all, there was a major level gap between them. That was too wide a difference. Suaping gritted his teeth and summoned the little skeleton. When the violent energy was attached to him, he waved his sword, which seemed like a black lightning bolt. After a boom sound, all the surrounding ice blades were annihilated. In the next moment, Suaping saw that the environment around the Ocean Sovereign turned into a snow world. The ground, the air, and the space, everything was condensed. The condensed domain was like an enormous channel of ice that approached Suaping, who was about to be swallowed by the laws. Of course, Suaping would not allow her to do that. He had recovered some of his strength, and he could manage to launch 2 strikes with his sword. He felt exhausted after breaking the Ocean Sovereign's attacks with 1 strike, he could only launch 1 last strike. He had to make her reveal her vulnerability with the strike. Ah! Suaping roared and punched. All the astral power in his body was burning, and all the star vortices in his cells were revolving like windmills. Violent energy was imbued into his fist, which unleashed a dazzling power. Hey! The Ocean Sovereign was slightly surprised by Suaping's brutal punch, which didn't involve any power of laws but was almost capable of interfering with her domain. That was how strength could break all tricks. Freeze, the Ocean Sovereign said softly. The coldness in the domain was all moved towards the fist of Exorcist, trying to freeze the scorching fist aura. Sua Ping's eyes emanated coldness at that exact moment, and his hidden killing intent was unleashed. He dashed and reached the Ocean Sovereign with a weird movement technique. Die! Sua Ping roared suddenly. Humph! The Ocean Sovereign, however, suddenly widened her eyes coldly, as if she were prepared for Sua Ping's surprising attack. Chains of ice appeared in front of her in the next moment, interweaving to form a shield. The black sword aura cut the shield and vaporized half of it. Heat and light from the friction was spreading out. But the sword aura was worn out all too soon. Seeing that Sua Ping's energy had run out, the Ocean Sovereign knew he was exhausted. That was the best opportunity. Rot in hell! She instantly rushed forward. However, the world suddenly flashed before her eyes. Then, Sua Ping was gone. He was replaced by faces filled with dread. Hey! The Ocean Sovereign was quite alarmed. Then, she realized that it wasn't Sua Ping, but her, who had been teleported. The people in front of her were all humans. Did they teleport me away so that Sua Ping could escape? Being right in the middle of a battle, the Ocean Sovereign didn't have time to think. She waved her claws without any mercy, upon sensing that all the humans present were weak, and some were even ordinary folk. Intense frost was spread out, all the humans were going to be frozen into ice sculptures. However, the frost disappeared the moment it formed, as if it would have never been invoked in the first place. The Ocean Sovereign was stunned for a moment. Then, an unprecedented feeling of horror grabbed her heart. The weird thing reminded her of something. If they wanted to save Sua Ping, why didn't they simply teleport him away? Why did they teleport her? She detected that the humans present weren't dangerous, so she never bothered to think much of it. However, the strangeness of the situation made her realize that it was a trap. Retreat? She wanted to leave, but something was loudly drumming right inside her head. The Ocean Sovereign felt like her soul, willpower, and energy were all dispersing. Her ears were ringing, and she was hardly herself anymore. Her power of law seemed to have been dispersed too, and she couldn't wield it. On the other hand, a notification sounded in Sua Ping's head. It's been detected that a creature is attempting to sabotage the shop. Would you like to suppress her or kill her? Suppress her, replied Sua Ping instantly. He looked back and saw that one of the Ocean Sovereign's legs had stepped into the shop, her hands had entered the shop, and the energy unleashed by her fingers had shrouded the shop. She was almost a textbook saboteur according to the system's definition. Boom! The moment Sua Ping said suppress her in his head, the Ocean Sovereign trembled and heavily fell on her knees outside the shop. The scene silenced and astounded everyone. The previously domineering Empress of the Seas was on her knees. The humans in front of her, all of whom had almost passed out a moment earlier, looked at her as she knelt before them, and felt like they were going crazy. What is going on? Up in the sky, Ji Yuanfeng and the other legends were all stupefied. The former had learned of Sua Ping's counterattack, but it didn't quite go as he expected. It was even more shocking than killing her. Nearby, the legendary warriors who cooperated with Ji Yuanfeng in this stratagem had been made aware of Sua Ping's plan. They were as surprised as Ji Yuanfeng and didn't expect the counterattack to be like that. Why, Your Majesty? The Fate State Beast King's eyeballs almost popped out when they saw that happen. The most esteemed emperor is kneeling in front of a bunch of humans. How is this possible? The nonchalant attitude had completely disappeared from the Empress's pretty face, her eyes were widened with disbelief. She sensed that an enormous force she couldn't resist had been imposed on her body. The power of laws as well as the energy inside her body were being held back, they couldn't be released in the slightest. Kneel there and reflect on your behavior, said Sua Ping coldly as he flew back to the shop and looked down at the Empress, as if he were a god delivering a judgment. The Empress gnashed her teeth. The humiliation almost made her head explode, she was about to go on a rampage. She summoned all her strength and tried to crane her head. However, what horrified her was that no matter how she invoked her power, the force that suppressed her remained absolutely unaffected. It was like a mountain on her back. She couldn't even shake it off. What the hell is this? The Empress couldn't help but shriek, which was an ear-splitting sonic attack. But her shriek was blocked the moment she uttered a sound. Humph! A snort seemed to come from nowhere. The snort was light, with disdain and condescension, as if it came from an emperor who looked down at the planet from the clouds. Only the Empress could hear that voice. All of a sudden, her mind went black, and her heart was overwhelmed with an unprecedented feeling of horror, like none she had ever felt before, not even that of the Lord of the Deep Caves that she had to bend to. In other people's eyes, the female creature was stiffened as if hit by a lightning strike. Her eyes lost focus, her pretty face was full of fear, drool was dripping from her lips, and most appallingly of all, fluid was flowing from her thighs. The Empress had wet herself. The many legendary warriors who saw this were too shocked to talk. What happened to the Empress? It looks like she just saw something horrifying. Everyone present was unable to fight the urge to look at Suoping, eager to know why this was happening. It was quite unbelievable that the Empress who had ruled the seas for 1,000 years had wet herself because of fear. Suoping also noticed that and was a little bit astonished. He didn't know how the system had dealt with her. Did it project the chaotic realm of the undead he knew, straight into her head? It would be a natural reaction if that were so. She had probably been paralyzed with fear by the sceneries of that world. Roar! 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 Unhand Her Majesty! The Fate State beasts were exasperated. They couldn't stand to see the Empress's wet dress, and they had also seen her on her knees, which was already insufferable. It was even more humiliating than them kneeling. Humiliation could only be washed away by blood. All the Fate State sea beasts rumbled close. The humans who had gone to Suoping's shop were so scared that everyone ran to the back of the shelter. There was no room for them inside the shelter, so they could only get as close to it as possible. Ji Yuanfeng and the others stepped out upon hearing the Demon King's roars. Your emperor has already surrendered. Do you still want to resist? Roared Ji Yuanfeng. Bulls asterisk it. The Fate State sea beasts were seething with anger. How could their emperor surrender? Suoping was rather pale. He was already extremely weak after performing the 2 strikes. He quickly absorbed the surrounding astral power and recovered his physical strength. He cancelled the fusion with the little skeleton in the meantime, and then asked it to help. He didn't summon the Inferno Dragon, its combat ability hadn't truly reached the Fate State yet, even though it had swallowed the purple dragon crystal. It might accidentally be killed in a Fate State chaotic battle in the... If you don't surrender, I'll kill her. Suoping landed and laid his sword on the nape of the Empress who was still on her knees, before he declared to the Fate State sea beasts. Even though he looked enfeebled, his previous performances had left a deep impression on the Beast Kings. Besides, Suoping had laid a sword on the Empress' nape, yet she didn't put up any resistance. As a result, all the Beast Kings had to stop even though they were angry and frustrated. Ji Yuanfeng and the others who were gritting their teeth as they prepared to fight them were all relieved. They would surely lose the fight. After all, there were a dozen Fate State enemies, and only Ji Yuanfeng and the deputy chief were in the Fate State on the human side. As for Gu Siping, he was still nowhere to be seen, and had probably already died. Ji Yuanfeng had already noticed that Gu Siping had been caught by the Lord of the Deep Caves during the escape. He was clearly hopeless. On the other side, the Heavenly King of Good and Evil gave an order, "Humph, if they're not going, we are." It considered this as a chance for revenge. The Otherworld Heavenly King and Seven Sins were both eager to try. The other Beast Kings from the Deep Caves also roared brutally and stepped out, ready to attack. Suoping said coldly upon seeing the alert, "Stop them if you don't want your emperor to die." He was addressing the Fate State Beast Kings of the seas. All the Fate State Beast Kings changed their expressions. The Fate State Beast Kings of the seas were so angry that their eyes were almost flaming. The Demon Kings of the Deep Caves, on the other hand, looked at them warily, fearing that they might really change sides. Noticing the impasse, Suo Ping quickly roared, "Get the hell out of here! You are just useless chickens without the ocean sovereign. Do you want me to kill you one by one?" The humans who had gone there to seek protection in the shop were all shocked by his roar. He speaks so confidently in front of so many horrifying monsters. Is he a god? The Fate State Beast Kings had a change in their expressions. They were shocked and angry. All of them could tell that Suo Ping was not nearly as strong as before, but they clearly remembered his performance. Suo Ping was indeed capable of killing them, and none of them knew how much strength Suo Ping had left. A Fate State Beast King would prefer not challenging Suo Ping, who was holding the Empress hostage at the moment, so it made a suggestion, "Hurry up, go and inform the Lord of the Deep Caves." The other Fate State Beast Kings realized that they didn't need to waste their time on Suo Ping either, and could simply leave him to the Lord of the Deep Caves. "Let's go and conquer the other places first. Stomp on them and enjoy." Very soon, the bloodthirsty Beast Kings of the Deep Caves chose to play in other places and leave the food in that place for the future. The Heavenly King of Good and Evil looked awful. It looked back at Suo Ping, seeing that all the other Fate State Beast Kings had retreated, only to find that he was also staring at itself. It changed its expression and remembered Suo Ping's sword. "Let's go." It didn't dare to stay any longer since all its allies had retreated. Phew! Everybody was relieved to see Suo Ping force the Fate State Beast Kings to retreat with a few words. All of them looked at Suo Ping with admiration and respect. Suo Ping noticed their eyes, but his heart was bitter. He didn't feel proud and neither did he feel satisfied. If the Lord of the Deep Caves couldn't be taken care of, what was the point of that momentary lapse of peace? "Do you have the contact information for the first generation Tower Master?" Suo Ping raised his hand, then he summoned Ji Yuanfeng and the others. After a moment of shock, Ji Yuanfeng shook his head. "Do you want to ask him for help? I don't have his contact details. I thought he was dead until he showed up today. His student is probably the only one who can reach out to him." "Do you mean Gu Siping?" asked Ye Wuxiu. Ji Yuanfeng nodded. A legendary warrior next to Yuan Tianchen said palely, "When I was retreating, I saw that Mr. Gu was eaten." Everybody's expressions had a slight change upon hearing that news. Only the Lord of the Deep Caves could have eaten him, none of the Fate State Beast Kings were strong enough to deal with him. Suo Ping couldn't help but heave a sigh in his heart, seeing that they didn't have a solution. But he was prepared for that. He simply said, "In that case, we'll just look for an opportunity. The Lord of the Deep Caves will soon remove the seal and release the planet's astral power that has been sealed and accumulated for 1,000 years. When the moment comes, Nai Huofeng may come out to compete for the astral power. If he does, I hope we can work with him to seal the Lord of the Deep Caves once again." Suo Ping was going to say catch, but he said seal in the end, so that it would be easier for them to understand. It would have been too scary if he proposed to catch the Lord of the Deep Caves. His eyes glowed with hope. Since Suo Ping had a defense divine formation that could resist star-state attacks powerful enough to suppress the ocean sovereign thus far, it was very likely that Suo Ping had a sealing divine formation that was equally powerful. Other people were thinking the same. They all looked at Suo Ping with unmasked delight. Suo Ping nodded. "More or less. However, the odds of success are only 10%. This probability would improve if the Lord is heavily wounded." 10%. Everybody looked solemn, and Ji Yuanfeng was the first one to talk. "The odds are not slim. A 10% chance is better than nothing. I'm willing to try even if the chance is 1%. "That's right. The odds are very high as it is. Boss Su, tell us what to do. We'll work with you and give it our best." Ye Wuxiu, Shui Yunzhen, Li Yuanfeng and the other legendary warriors pitched in. After taking a deep breath, Suo Ping said solemnly, "We can't reach out to Nai Huofeng, so we can only wait for the Lord of the Deep Caves to unlock the astral power that has been sealed for 1,000 years. Let's see if Nai Huofeng comes out during the absorption." If he does, we'll work with him to wound the Lord of the Deep Caves. If he doesn't, everybody's expressions changed slightly. Therefore, the key for suppressing that beast was the first-generation Tower Master. Nai Huofeng had previously been heavily wounded by the Lord of the Deep Caves, eventually running for cover to the tertiary space. It remained unknown where he was hiding, or whether he was still alive. "I'll try to manage on my own if he doesn't show up," said Suoping slowly and thoughtfully. Everybody looked at Suoping in shock. He'll attack the Lord of the Deep Caves on his own? Wouldn't that be suicide? That's not possible. Ji Yuanfeng quickly said. Yang Yuxiu also said, "You can't do that. Although we can't offer much help, it will still take some time for the Lord of the Deep Caves to kill us. Even if we only manage to delay it for 1 second, it could still offer an opportunity for you. Let's go there together." "That's right." The nearby Li Yuanfeng also nodded. Shui Yunzhen and Xiang Fengran shared the same attitude. "Boss Su, we won't survive for long if anything happens to you, even if we hide in your shelter. It's only a slower way of dying. We would rather go full out." "I'm willing to risk everything and fight alongside Boss Su." "Me too." Some of the other legendary warriors voiced zealous remarks. Yuan Tianchen and his fellows, however, were reluctant to make similar declarations. They had stayed for too long in the surface world that they had forgotten the meaning of self-sacrifice. Suoping became more aware of the responsibilities riding on his shoulders even better after hearing Li Yuanfeng, Xiao Mo, the bald man and the other legendary warriors. If he failed, not just them, everybody else behind the defense lines would die. Suoping took a deep breath and said solemnly, "Okay, listen to my commands when the time comes." He didn't persuade nor stop them, because he didn't want to fail, and he did need help. Also, he had already felt everybody's sincere devotion. They would only be in more pain if they were asked to stay there. Some people preferred to die a hero's death than to live a worthless life. Everybody wore delighted smiles when Suoping accepted their requests. "Mr. Su, thank you. We're willing to listen to your command, Boss Su." "At your service, Boss Su." Everybody echoed those statements. The humans who had gone to the shop for help shed hot tears when they heard the conversation. Those were true legends. The indomitable legendary warriors had been protecting them on the thorny road. "We're willing to help, too. The Tang family is willing to follow your lead. The men of the Tang family are willing to fight a last battle with all the legendary warriors," exclaimed the people on the ground who chose to stay, hoping to join the battle and devote their strength. The exclamations resonated throughout the crowd. All the men and women in the shop's safe area were weeping, some of them stepped out and chose to stay. Everybody stood united at this moment. Suoping clenched his fists with intimidating eyes as he heard all the battle cries. Ji Yuanfeng asked Suoping, "What do we do with the Ocean Sovereign? Do we execute her?" The legendary warriors couldn't help but look at the Empress on the ground, whose knees were still on the safe circle outside of Suoping's shop. "Keep her alive and let her repent here. Leave a legendary warrior behind. Threaten any fate state sea beasts with taking this by *ch's life if they try to invade," said Suoping coldly. Everybody was rendered speechless by Suoping's obvious contempt. However, she was indeed despicable, considering everything she had done. She deserved to be killed regardless of her beauty. Back on ground level, the Empress had also heard what Suoping said. She could still hear everything around her, even though her body was bound to the soil. She was slightly shocked by Suoping's plan, not expecting to see such a monster among humans, one who possessed a divine formation that could seal star state targets. Although the odds of success were only 10%, such a number was tremendously high, considering that the targets were in the star state. The fact that she was being suppressed made her completely believe what Suoping said. She was both shocked and exasperated by the derision in Suoping's tone. She found it unpardonable that he would address her in such a demeaning way. "Damn it! Damn it! I'm going to kill you after I break free." She secretly gnashed her teeth, and her eyes were scorching with fury. All the humans close to her within the shop saw the anger on the Empress' face, still, she couldn't move at all even though she was pissed. They found it quite weird. Exactly at this moment, a shocking explosion burst out. Boom! Everybody was panicking as they looked at the source of the explosion. Far in the distance, the almost 1,000 meters tall Lord of the Deep Caves was standing in front of an enormous spatial crack. Blue stars were glittering beyond the crack. It seemed to be highly condensed astral power. Sui Ping's pupils contracted in shock. The Lord of the Deep Caves had indeed destroyed the seal, and beyond the crack was a sealed world. The base city that defended the seal had obviously been destroyed. Is it the world that the first-generation Tower Master sealed? That must be astral power. My God! It's as thick as honey. That astral power has been accumulating for 1,000 years. It's astonishing. Ji Yuanfeng and the others were appalled to see the gigantic spatial crack. Sui Ping's face was contorted upon realizing what was going on. The Lord of the Deep Caves had somehow broken the seal without destroying it. It simply caused a crack on the seal. That breach wasn't enough to open the sealed continent, but the Lord of the Deep Caves could absorb astral power from it. It was obvious that the Lord feared that the sealed continent would be freed if the seal was completely destroyed, thus changing the situation on the blue planet. Then, the astral power inside would be evenly distributed across the blue planet, which would then make it harder to absorb. The Lord of the Deep Caves was essentially sucking the astral power from a bowl at this moment. Sui Ping quickly looked around for traces of Naihuo Feng. He didn't find anything at all. He was anxious and worried. He would have to rely on his luck if the first Tower Master didn't show up. 10% odds weren't exactly high. Come on, let's get closer. It's busy absorbing astral power and taking precautions for a possible counterattack from Naihuo Feng. We are the least of its worries, said Sui Ping in a low voice. Ji Yuanfeng and the others nodded after hearing what he said, then looked for Naihuo Feng too. They hoped that the first Tower Master wasn't a defector. It wasn't even possible for them to deliver the message regarding Sui Ping's sealing divine formation, which was what made them nervous. The system's voice suddenly echoed in Sui Ping's head. Are you really going? The enemy is a star-state being. You can't even run if it tries to kill you. Sui Ping replied without thinking, of course. It's worth a shot. But the odds are very slim, the system said coldly, the chance is only 10%. You're gambling with your life. With my help, as long as you hide in the shop and train until you're strong enough, the Lord of the Deep Caves won't be your match. It would grow at a much slower rate than you. Also, with my help, you may even become a god and live forever in the future. Sui Ping turned grim. What are you getting at? My suggestion is that you don't go. After all, it wasn't easy for me to find a host, and I've invested a lot of time on you. I don't want my efforts to go down the drain, said the system with unusual coldness. Sui Ping took a deep breath and said, I've thought about all the things that you mentioned. Yes, I can survive by hiding here, and I may eventually become a king or even a god with your help in the future. However, he gritted his teeth and clenched his fists, before he declared in his head, bit by bit, however, to become a god, I want to become a human first. A human who deserves himself and who is not ashamed of what he does. The system fell into silence. Look at the people around me, said Sui Ping to the system, they can't see any hope other than through me. They're willing to sacrifice themselves for such a slim hope. As for me, I'm simply trying my best. How can I chicken out? How can I? The system remained silent, not giving a single word in reply. Sui Ping took a deep breath after his speech. He didn't add anything else, and he noticed that the system remained silent. He had thought of everything before he made a decision. Indeed, he could live if he took a step back. However, stepping back would mean trading his dignity as a man for a chance of survival. Maybe he would die, but he wouldn't regret trying his best. Let's go, roared Suaping. It was his first time acting on his own, without needing to follow the system's suggestions. Whoosh! Suaping dashed out first, then Ji Yuanfeng and the others solemnly merged with their battle pets and followed him. They reached the edge of the Longjiang base city in the blink of an eye. Suaping looked around and saw Xiejin Shui commanding on a wall in the middle of a swarm of wild beasts. He had already informed Xiejin Shui to head to his shop, but the guy never arrived. Instead, he relayed the message to other people. Suaping's eyes were red as he stared at Xiejin Shui, who was issuing commands on that dangerous wall. He summoned the Inferno Dragon and asked it to help him. As for himself, he quickly calmed himself down. Although he was eager to help Xiejin Shui, he knew he had greater responsibilities. He quickly looked around with divine light gathering in his eyes, which allowed him to see all the spatial anomalies in his surroundings. Get out! Get out now! Suaping roared, desperate to see Nai Huofeng. He was confident of improving the odds of success to 30% if Nai Huofeng worked with him. That would be almost 1/3. Far away, in another base city, the Lord of the Deep Caves was standing in front of the torn seal and absorbing the 1,000-year astral power behind it. The condensed power was thick, blue, and with a honey-like consistency. It was flowing toward the Lord of the Deep Caves' body, making its energy even more abundant than before. The wound on its arm was also being slowly healed by the astral power. Suaping and all the others were anxious. Get out! Suaping secretly roared and gritted his teeth. He took out the special grade beast catching ring and clenched it. He couldn't wait any longer. He had to take action. He would have to rely on the basic odds of the special grade beast catching ring if the Lord of the Deep Caves kept absorbing the astral power and healing itself. The beast was still wounded at the moment, the odds of success could be improved to 20%. Suaping's pupils contracted right when he was about to take action. Ecstasy emerged on his face. At the same time, the Lord of the Deep Caves stopped the astral power absorption and turned around. In the next moment, burning flames surged out of the void and transformed into a scorching spear, which seemed to be burning up the sky. I knew you would come, the Lord of the Deep Caves roared excitedly and aggressively. A domain of darkness surrounded it, and thousands of demons were roaring. The ancient demonic runes on its wings surfaced at that same moment. They were launched as chains of spell force. An ocean of blood was rising in the void, as the chain of spell force tied up the fiery spear. Explosions and violent energy were bursting out. The terrifying blast was like that of a nuclear bomb. Suaping and the others' hair fluttered in the distance, even though they were 100 kilometers away. We'll find an opportunity to take action, said Suaping solemnly while watching the battle. Got it, replied Ji Yuanfeng and the others as they resisted the wind, sand, and the turbulent energy with shields of their own. Nai Huofeng appeared in the sky right then. He was drenched in blood, as if he would have been wounded in the tertiary space. His red hair was a mess, and he was clearly on the losing side as he clashed against the Lord of the Deep Caves. Ah! Nai Huofeng roared in the sky and his wounds stopped bleeding. Scorching magma-like energy flowed out as he once again stimulated his battle body on a rampage. Go to hell, the Lord of the Deep Caves roared back. It waved its fist, raising countless tides. The shrieking demons in the domain were both launching mental attacks and swallowing Nai Huofeng's attack to weaken it. Seeing that, Suaping instantly roared, attack! Charge! With passion in their eyes, Ji Yuanfeng and the others unleashed their maximum strength and darted at the Lord of the Deep Caves like moths. Kill them all! Yuexiu's astral power and aura burst out as he launched his ultimate skill by burning his vitality. On the other hand, Ji Yuanfeng turned into a crescent moon that emitted a cold light while he roared and rushed forth. The other legendary warriors, such as Shui Yunzhen and Xiang Fengran, launched their most powerful secret techniques towards the Lord of the Deep Caves' head. Boom! Overwhelming energy was spread out in the sky. The Lord of the Deep Caves noticed Suaping and the others while fighting Nai Huofeng. It had detected them earlier, but it didn't expect that those ants would be bold enough to offend him. It being a star state ranker made it consider those legendary warriors as nothing but ants. And yet, they had the audacity to attack at the critical moment. F***ck off, roared the Lord of the Deep Caves. Several bloody blades that were hundreds of meters long emerged from the ocean and swept at them. The blood blades moved so fast that they crushed the primary space and entered the secondary space, immediately appearing in front of the humans. Ji Yuanfeng was the first to be hit since he was in the lead. The crescent moon he had turned into exploded, he was then knocked away, vomiting blood. Yan Yuxiu and the others were all shocked as they moved behind him, but it was impossible for them to retreat anymore, they could only go forward. They roared and collided with the bloody blades. Almost 10 legendary warriors were slain on the spot after a resounding boom. Those were mostly surface warriors who were tagging along with Yuan Tianchen. They were clearly not as good at fighting as Li Yuanfeng and the others who had always fought in the deep caves. Captain! Shui Yunzhen's attack was shattered. She was about to be killed by another bloody blade, when the bald man behind her bellowed and pushed her away. He was instantly hit by the bloody blade and reduced to a mist of blood. Shui Yunzhen looked back after having been thrown several thousand meters away. Her eyes widened when she saw the blood mist. She let out a devastating cry and shed bloody tears. A deafening explosion arrived from the sky. Everybody saw that a scorching wheel rolled out from the bloody ocean. Nai Huofeng was right behind the wheel and pushing it forward. His skin was falling apart, and he seemed like a god of fire completely made of magma. Break! Nai Huofeng's roar echoed throughout the sky. The wheel roared and gathered all his energy while it rolled towards the Lord of the Deep Caves. The latter's expression changed. It had been distracted by the ants. Nai Huofeng used that opportunity. It was quite shocked and scared by the expanding wheel, sensing the threat of death. It was unable to hold back anymore once it was facing such a threat. Demonic aura roiled around it, and a gigantic demon shadow surfaced on its back. The demon shadow was more than 10,000 meters tall. It looked down at the entire base city, including all the defense lines. The terror inspired by the demon made all the demons and humans behind the defense lines halt in fright. Roar! The Lord of the Deep Caves roared, and the demon shadow was attached to him. It was burning the demon blood in its body and borrowing a little bit of power from its far-off ancestor. Even though it was just a little bit of power, it was tremendously horrifying to Nai Huofeng. Boom! The Lord of the Deep Caves punched out once the demon shadow was attached to itself. The bloody ocean was instantly emptied, and the brilliant wheel collided with the demon's fist. The world was caught by a spell of quietness. It was not until a few seconds later that the violent sound waves were finally spread out. The wheel was broken, and Nai Huofeng also vomited blood in crazy amounts. Like a bird with broken wings, he was flung thousands of meters away, and the flames across his body were quickly dimming. The blast swept across everything, making all the buildings and walls within the range of the attack collapse. Even the foundations had collapsed deeply. The Lord of the Deep Caves' enormous body was also forced back. Its aura was dwindling at a fast rate. Whoosh! A person dashed out exactly at that moment, appearing next to the Lord of the Deep Caves. He was none other than Suoping. Far in the distance, Ji Yuanfeng and the others who were vomiting blood raised their heads with wide eyes. It was a make-or-break moment. You must succeed! Everybody shouted in their hearts. Catch! Suoping, who had been looking for an opportunity, coldly and crazily cast the special grade beast catching ring. Hey! The Lord of the Deep Caves' eyes were filled with fury again when it saw the ant that emerged next to its head. It squeezed some of its strength and launched it at the enemy. It couldn't see what Suoping had thrown out, but it was able to tell that the human was plotting something. It was going to shatter both the black object and Suoping. Break! Suoping waved his sword and performed the void sword attack with whatever was left of his energy. The sword aura tore apart the void and nullified the Lord of the Deep Caves' attack. The latter hadn't really gathered much strength yet, that was why Suoping broke it easily with the void sword. Please work! Sua Ping stared at the black ring with bloodshot eyes. Ding! The black ring then successfully struck the Lord of the Deep Caves. The world was quiet for a second. Then, the black ring collapsed, producing an enormous new space. A terrifying attraction force was spread out in the end. Many chains had also extended from space and tied up the Lord of the Deep Caves. The Lord of the Deep Caves changed its expression with contracted pupils right then. It sensed fear from the collapsed dark space, as if it could never break free again after it stepped in. What the hell is that? Is that the humans' ultimate trick that they were fighting so hard to employ? Roar, roar, roar! The Lord of the Deep Caves roared so hard that the clouds within hundreds of kilometers were driven away. The collapsed dark space jogged the deepest fear in the Lord of the Deep Caves' memories. It didn't want to return to the underground to be sealed and suppressed again. Break now, the Lord of the Deep Caves roared furiously. The battle against Nihuofeng had consumed all its energy. However, it simply burned its demonic blood and unleashed a horrifying burst of energy again. Then, it raised its claw and cut into the tertiary space before it teleported the collapsed black hole into the space. The black space floated in the tertiary space without being broken, its chains were still bound to the Lord of the Deep Caves. It was such a critical moment that Sua Ping, Ji Yuanfeng, and all the others held their breaths with pounding hearts. Roar! The Lord of the Deep Caves ferociously bit the chains on its body. One of the chains was shattered after a crack. Then, it quickly struggled, and all the other chains crumbled one by one. The crisp sounds of the chains being broken echoed in Sua Ping's head like the tolling of a death knell. He was completely stunned. Lost. Lost. He had lost. Sua Ping's mind went blank. Ji Yuanfeng and the others' eyes opened as wide as they could go. Their hopes had been extinguished, all of them remained and stood where they were. They had done everything in their power. Many of the legendary warriors had sacrificed themselves. Nihuofeng had also appeared and fought until the last moment. But still, they had failed. Reality wasn't changed because of their relentless fighting, and luck didn't side with them either. Everybody realized the cruel reality, and the upcoming despair. Even worse, unlike the suppression 1,000 years earlier, it was going to be confined in a smaller and darker place, which made it even more horrifying. Boom! It quickly flung its claw. The world instantly became dark, several cracks were left in the surrounding space. The claw fell on top of Sua Ping's head in the blink of an eye. Sua Ping had also woken up from that failure. He was greatly shocked by the claw above his head and tried to dodge. However, the previous attack had almost drained his energy. Whoosh! The bones that covered his body were suddenly erected, they hauled him back, trying to protect him from the sharp claw. However, the claw was too large, and there was no time. The bones quickly weaved an oval shield in front of Sua Ping, hoping to endure the attack for him. Mr. Su! Brother Su! Far in the distance, Yan Yuxiu, Li Yuanfeng and the others were greatly shocked. They hurriedly moved closer in an attempt to stop this. Ji Yuanfeng was pale and his silver hair was unkempt. He struggled to raise his arm, trying to teleport Sua Ping away from the Lord of the Deep Caves. Next to him, a wounded deputy chief gritted his teeth and said, "I'll help you." Even so, they found it impossible to shake the space even after joining their forces. The Lord of the Deep Caves was determined to kill Sua Ping and had completely locked down all the surrounding space, not giving him any chance to escape. Both of them looked frustrated and desperate. Bang! 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 Explosions burst out all of a sudden, as defense skills emerged on the path of the sharp claw. Those defense skills were from assorted classes and elements. Some were red, some were blue, and some were green. Their complexity was shocking. However, the king-level defense skills of those classes were shattered like mirrors the moment they appeared. Those defensive measures were as worthless as paper in front of a star-state power. The shattered energy passed by Sua Ping's eyes. He was stunned, as if having been hit by lightning. An opening was opened in the confined space 10 meters ahead of him, and the dark dragonhound squeezed out. But he didn't summon it at all. Sua Ping came back to himself and roared, "What are you doing? Go back!" He never planned to defend himself with the dark dragonhound, because it was impossible to resist star-state attacks. It was better for him to die on his own than to ask his pets to die a pointless death. That way, even if he really died, at least his pets could be randomly teleported to a different place and survive. However, the dark dragonhound had torn apart the pet space and gone out without his permission. "Go back! Go back now!" Sua Ping was so anxious that his bloodshot eyes were shedding tears. The dark dragonhound didn't look his way, it simply showed its back to Sua Ping. It then began to burn its vitality the next moment, unleashing the most brilliant power. Bang! 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 Explosions echoed non-stop. One defense after another was structured by the astral power, before it exploded. Tens and hundreds of them were built, but they were all shattered by the Lord of the Deep Cave's absolutely dominating strength. Sua Ping could hardly breathe as he watched. He roared, "Stupid dog, go back! It's useless! You can't stop it! Go back now!" He tried his best to recall the dark dragonhound. However, he was already out of power and could only make use of the contract. In fact, the flames of the contract were burning furiously on the dark dragonhound. Sua Ping's expression changed greatly. It was resisting the power of the contract even after violating the terms. Why would it rather endure the penalizing flames of the contract? Why was it so stupid? The Lord of the Deep Cave's claw finally arrived with destructive might, hitting both the dark dragonhound and Sua Ping. Bang! Bang! They were smashed to the ground and left two giant pits. Sua Ping felt as if all his bones had been broken and his head was ringing. He looked around with a pale face when he thought of the dark dragonhound. He saw his pet in another pit, it was lying there, bleeding and unmoving. The contract flames were still burning on its body. "No, no, stop! Stop!" Sua Ping roared and tried to stop the contract's power in his head. The contract flames soon died out. Sua Ping found that the bones outside his body were full of cracks and his head was humming. The little skeleton must have taken most of the damage to protect him. If the little skeleton had been wounded that badly, the dark dragonhound must have suffered even worse. Sua Ping ran crazily to check on the dark dragonhound. Then, he discovered to his delight that the dark dragonhound was still alive. It was about to exhale its last breath, but was fortunately still alive. "Stupid dog, why are you so stupid? Why are you so stupid?" Hot tears rolled in Sua Ping's eyes. He didn't cry often, but she couldn't hold himself back this time. "Hey! Die now!" The Lord of the Deep Caves was surprised to see that Sua Ping wasn't killed, it was quite angry. Since it wasn't in its best shape, it intended to kill Sua Ping as quickly as possible and then take time to recover, just in case anything else happened. Boom! It brutally stomped over Sua Ping. Its foot had locked down the space around Sua Ping, with the clear intent to kill him. "Mr. Su!" Yuxiu and the others were sprinting close and shouting loudly from a distance. Sua Ping saw the shadow that had swallowed him. He was still dragging the dark dragonhound as far away as possible even though he knew the hope of survival was slim. He had never given up during the life and death exercises in the cultivation sites, right until the last moment, even though he could have been considered dead by then. Explosions suddenly echoed above his head. Bang! 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 Multicolored energy was split up into chaotic particles. Sua Ping lost balance and fell on the ground. He raised his head, only to see defense skills underneath the giant foot that was pressing down. Those were all the dark dragonhound's skills. It was already dying. Sua Ping didn't even know where it found the strength to release all those skills. "Stupid dog," Sua Ping looked at it. "Why were you so stupid, so dead set in learning so many defense skills. Didn't I tell you that offense is the best defense? The dark dragon hound's head had been deformed by the previous strike. Its eyeballs had almost been squeezed out, and its fur was matted with blood. It struggled to turn its head around and look at Sua Ping. Because I wanted to protect you, boom. Sua Ping was stunned. The dark dragon hound talked in their darkest hour. What it said stumped Sua Ping, who felt as if all his blood were frozen. Stupid dog, why are all the skills you've grasped about defense? Stupid dog, are you really so afraid of death? Stupid dog, can't you grasp more offensive skills, like the little skeleton and the others' pets? Because I wanted to protect you. While Sua Ping sat on the ground in a daze, the dark dragon hound that had tagged along suddenly stood and growled with blood all over its body. The growl echoed throughout the city, as if it were the only sound in the world. The wind was sweeping out. Sua Ping raised his head and saw the dark dragon hound that was growling and running. Lum-dum, lum-dum. His frozen blood was instantly warmed up, his eyes became bloodshot as he watched his pet move away. Because I wanted to protect you. Sua Ping rose all of a sudden, with billions of explosions bursting out of his body. Each explosion was feeble, but they sounded like a supernova outbreak when billions of them were combined. Yes, all the dim star vortices in Sua Ping's cells exploded, which filled him with an appalling surge of energy. He extended his hands forward with reddened eyes and a maddened behavior. Stupid dog, I want to protect you, too. Come back Nuo. Sua Ping let out a roar that echoed throughout the defense lines. His only thought was to catch the dark dragon hound and prevent it from running away. Never. All of a sudden, Sua Ping felt that something in his body had been torn apart. In the next moment, the dark dragon hound suddenly glowed and turned into a glittering ball of light before it moved toward Sua Ping. He shivered and then sensed that something had entered his body. The most ferocious energy soon arose in his limbs and internal organs. The power was beyond Sua Ping's imagination, it was the greatest power he had ever sensed in his life. Fusion. Yan Yuxiu and the others who were supporting in battle widened their eyes in shock. Sua Ping was already in the merged state with the white bones over his body. However, his other pet had also turned into energy and merged with him. It was a double fusion. Everybody was too shocked to say anything, this had debunked all their preconceptions and imagination. Whoosh! A sword aura that looked like a black lightning tore space apart. The next moment, the Lord of the Deep Caves stomped on the ground and left a massive pit. The ground was shaking as if an earthquake had just taken place. Hey! The Lord of the Deep Caves was stunned, then becoming awfully gloomy. It turned around and looked at an empty space. Yan Yuxiu, Ji Yuanfeng and all the others who tasked themselves as Sua Ping's reinforcements were all shocked into stillness by the unimaginable double fusion. All of them looked at the same place the Lord of the Deep Caves was looking. A thunderstorm suddenly began in the sky. Boom! A man was standing alone with a black sword in the empty sky. His silver hair was flying in the wild wind. Sua Ping's appearance had greatly changed. He had previously been covered in bones. There were still bones on the surface of his body, but he had become 3 meters tall with the same body figure. His black hair also became long and silver-colored. Sharp talons protruded from his fists, and a thick silver tail emerged on his back. His legs had turned into those of a wolf's and were full of explosive power. Sua Ping slowly raised his head in the middle of the thunderstorm. His eyes were still bloodshot, but he managed to hold back the thirst for blood. He had sensed the power and the heavens test. Like judgment being served, he could feel that something was watching him from an invisible space that was too distant to arrive, somewhere beyond that universe. It seemed to be heaven itself. Are you finally willing to test me? Sua Ping mumbled. He lowered his head and looked at his hands and legs. His physical changes were obvious, he had already realized what had happened. He could also feel that the dark dragon hound was still alive and deeply bound to himself like never before. Was this what a fusion felt like? Sui Ping found it slightly different from when he merged with the little skeleton. To be more precise, the ability to merge with the little skeleton was just one of its skills, and the fusion he was feeling was the real deal. He raised his head and looked at the gathering dark clouds. The sky had been torn apart by the battle's chaotic energy and no clouds could be seen. However, dark clouds began to gather from all directions. Those clouds were almost endless. Sui Ping raised his head, but was unable to see the end of the clouds 10,000 kilometers away. I didn't expect to become a legendary warrior in such a moment. Sui Ping took a deep breath. He had detonated all the star vortices in his cells with a suicide attack, which had accidentally resulted in a breakthrough. This enabled him to merge with the Dark Dragon Hound at the critical moment. He had hit the bottleneck in the Chaos Star chart training when he reached the limits of the 9th rank. He didn't know that the way to break the bottleneck was to expose himself to a great crisis. The exploding star vortices in his body were thriving. Every cell had been swept by the vortices' power, which then made them look like round planets. It was exactly the astral body state, the second state in the Chaos Star chart. Sui Ping could tell that his cells could accommodate 10 times more astral power than they did before. He could unleash his attacks faster and more powerfully. I'm an ocean state warrior now, Sui Ping took a soft breath. His wounds had partly healed after the breakthrough, and his drained body had been replenished with energy when the star vortices exploded. He was in his best condition yet. However, he was about to face his heaven's test. As far as he could see, this tribulation seemed to be much bigger than he had anticipated. They suddenly detected that there was something familiar about the clouds. Is it a heavenly tribulation? Is Sui Ping breaking through to the star state? As they thought about it, everybody's eyes widened in ecstasy. Conversely, Ji Yuanfeng and the deputy chief were confused. Ji Yuanfeng stared at the clouds and remarked, I don't think it's related to a star state test. Hey! Everybody looked at him. Ji Yuanfeng was at the peak of the fate state, inching ever so closer to the star state. He knew much more than the rest of them did. Chief, what do you mean? Asked Yuan Tianchen while evidently unsettled. Ji Yuanfeng looked at the sky and said in a solemn tone, considering what is recorded in the ancient classics, the star state test is not a lightning strike, but a test inside your own body. So, you would have to pass the test within yourself. Everybody was stunned, as they had never heard of such a thing before. A test would happen inside your body in order to enter the star state? Then, what was the test about? Li Yuanfeng suddenly remembered the joke that Sui Ping told all the time. He said with utmost shock, Is he taking the legendary warrior test? Everybody was quite shocked to hear that. The legendary warrior test? Ji Yuanfeng's expression also changed. He suddenly remembered how he was unable to detect Sui Ping's level. He was already at the peak of the fate state, it was hard and unnecessary for Sui Ping to hide his level from him. After all, they were on the same side. He hadn't even been able to gauge Sui Ping's real level when the latter was being cornered. What he had sensed was that Sui Ping was just an exceptional titled warrior. Was that his real level? Ji Yuanfeng's mind went blank as if it had just exploded after thinking about it. A titled warrior had been fighting alongside them, and was actually the strongest of all? The other legendary warriors were also astounded by Li Yuanfeng's comment. Boss Su has always claimed that he's just a titled warrior. I always thought he was joking. Mumbled a stunned Qin Dehuang. Zhou Tianlin was also dazed by the thought. The Lord of the Deep Caves was also shocked to see the gathering clouds. It realized something and looked at Sui Ping in fright. It had also sensed at first that the human wasn't even a legendary warrior. But it didn't consider that a big deal. It originally concluded that Sui Ping had cultivated a certain ancient disguising technique. After all, how could he flash from place to place or make use of the power of laws if he were really just a 9th rank warrior? That wasn't something that anyone in the 9th rank could have done. However, what was happening right before its eyes forced it into believing that the human was really just a 9th rank ant. A guy who wasn't even a legendary warrior had almost trapped it. Hooray! The Lord of the Deep Caves let out a furious roar. Bastard! Bastard! I'm going to kill you! Suaping stood quietly in the sky. He couldn't help but feel the desire to kill again upon hearing such fierce words, but he did his best to hold back and sternly look at the enemy. Why don't you try? A good thing about the heavenly tribulation was that anyone who attacked the person going through it would also be attacked. It was also worthy of note that the power of the test wasn't merely fixed at the legendary level, it would also depend on the level of the attacker. If a star state being barged in, the heavenly tribulation would adapt and deal the invader a star state tribulation. After all, heavenly tribulation was a true test from heaven itself. Heaven would pass judgment during such a trial. Whoever attempted to kill the subject being judged was actually showing contempt and disrespect toward heaven. Suaping was determined to kill the Lord of the Deep Caves. He wasn't afraid of its meddling, and was confident of defending himself even if the latter really dared to attack. He was already at the legendary level, passing the test was the last step. He had dozens of times more energy than he did before, performing void sword attacks had become all too easy for him. You're asking to be killed? The Lord of the Deep Caves' eyes glowed fiercely. It had always regarded Nai Huofeng as its primary opponent, then it finally defeated the man and almost killed him. Still, another guy had shown up. Even if you pass the test, so what? You're still an ant even if you break through. I'll kill you all the same. The Lord of the Deep Caves gnashed its teeth. Its voice echoed throughout the void. Yan Yuxiu and the others at ground level were shocked to find that their speculation had been confirmed. Suaping was really going through a legendary warrior test. He had truly been a titled warrior all along. They were too shocked to say anything upon remembering that Suaping had made 2 trips to the corridor. They didn't have the ability nor the courage to do that even though they had been at the legendary rank for ages. And yet, Suaping had done that when he was only a titled warrior. This guy? The deputy chief turned around. He looked at Qin Dehuang, who was quite familiar with Suaping, and asked, back when he broke into the tower and killed 3 legendary warriors in a row, what was his level? Qin Dehuang came back to his senses and looked at the deputy chief. He thought for a moment and said, if what I perceived that day was accurate, he probably was at the 7th rank back. Silence reigned everywhere. The 7th rank. Suaping had forced his way into the tower and killed 3 legendary warriors when he was only a 7th ranker, barely an advanced battle pet warrior. Even worse, one of them had been a void state warrior. The deputy chief was slack-jawed, stunned by what Qin Dehuang had said. He had only been at the 7th rank. The deputy chief had taken action for the dignity of the tower, yet Suaping had managed to block his attack. Suaping was only at the 7th rank back then? I failed to defeat a 7th ranker? Not just the deputy chief, Yuan Tianchen and the others were just as dumbfounded. Yuan Tianchen in particular, he remembered how Suaping had competed with his granddaughter for a legacy. No wonder she never won. She was competing with a monster. An unprecedented super monster. Why is his legendary test so large? At this moment, someone noticed how vast the thunderstorm shrouding Suaping was. Another onlooker was shocked after coming to that realization. The thunderstorm covered an entire mountain when I became a legend. That was already shocking enough. My thunderstorm only covered 5 kilometers. It drew everybody's attention too. This guy's heavenly tribulation. Oh my god, why do I feel that it's spreading hundreds of kilometers away? The legendary warriors exchanged their impressions in whispers, rekindling their first shock. The heavenly tribulations they had passed had already been shocking and splendid enough, but they were just a minor breeze compared to the one over Suaping's head. Ji Yuanfeng's expression changed. His legendary test only had a 20-kilometer radius, which was massive in its own right. He had learned from certain ancient classics that the size of the heavenly tribulation depended on the examinee's potential. The more gifted one was, the larger the test would be, and the more they would attain if they passed it. Whoosh! Ji Yuanfeng rose dozens of meters from the ground. Starry light gathered in his eyes as he looked at the horizons. To his shock, he discovered that he was unable to see the edges. The radius was not hundreds of kilometers, but probably thousands of kilometers. This guy! Ji Yuanfeng looked at Suoping floating high in the sky, wondering about how unbelievably gifted he was. He had to be one of the top geniuses in the entire Interstellar Federation. In the north, two men were traversing the sky at a fast speed. They were two legendary warriors. One of them had been tasked with delivering messages to the tower by Gu Siping, and the other was the legend who was permanently defending the tower. They were at the moment on their way to reinforce the defense lines. After all, even the first-generation Tower Master had gone to the front lines earlier. As they saw it, the first-generation Tower Master, a Star State warrior, was enough to vanquish the beast tides. It was exactly at that moment when clouds gathered in the sky above them. Lightning then proliferated amidst the clouds. Such a destructive aura struck a familiar chord in both of them. Is it a heavenly tribulation thunderstorm? Both of them stopped and looked ahead in surprise. How is it possible? Whose heavenly tribulation could have caused such a huge thunderstorm? Is it a star state test? Further away, right at the edge of the subcontinent district, waters were surging and many wild sea beasts were moving closer to the shore. There were so many of them that they could occupy every corner of the continent if all they went ashore. All of a sudden, some of the beasts with higher cultivation stopped and looked up. The sky at the end of the horizon became dark. Dark clouds seemed to be gathering and roiling. The sea creatures were at a loss. Behind the defense lines, the entire sky had turned dim because of the thunderstorm. What the hell is that? The heavenly king of good and evil suddenly raised its head in the middle of their slaughter. The other beast kings also stopped, astonished by the clouds above their heads. Someone is passing a heavenly tribulation. What's this test? Is it for the star state? Is the ocean sovereign transcending? The fate state sea beasts became excited and cheered loudly. The fate state beasts from the deep caves looked at each other in bewilderment. The Sea Empress would probably fight against their king if she reached the star stage. After all, two tigers couldn't share one mountain. Outside the Pixie Pet Store, the survivors who were hiding in the shop looked at the dim sky and the thunderstorm, wondering what was going on. The kneeling Empress also noticed the anomaly. She couldn't raise her head at the moment. The best she could do was to see from the corner of her eye. She noticed how the distant skies were dim. Someone is going through a heavenly tribulation? How is it possible? This isn't a star state test. Is it a legendary test? No, that's impossible. It wouldn't be this vast. The shocked Empress unleashed her energy and tried to break free so she could find out who was being tested. Joanna squeezed through the crowd and walked out of the shop. She looked at the thick clouds in the sky and gathered divine light in her eyes. The buildings then stopped hindering her view. She saw things in the far distance. It truly is him. Joanna was stunned for a moment. Her eyes twitched as she looked at the thunderstorm. The heavenly tribulation with 100-kilometer radius that he had previously caused was already shocking enough for her, which also indicated his star stage potential. However, he was causing an even vaster test, with bounds she couldn't even see. He probably had the gift to become a god. Boom! The dark clouds were surging as if countless dragons were flying and coiling. Their pressure was becoming increasingly horrifying. Suoping became solemn as he floated underneath the clouds. He looked at the Lord of the Deep Caves, who had decided to return to the breached heaven lock and greedily absorb astral power to heal its wounds. Suoping couldn't do anything at that moment. The heavenly tribulation would be disrupted if he tried. Suoping looked at the clouds above and roared, "Damn it, strike down already!" The clouds surged as if provoked. The sky, as dark as ink, looked like an inverted ocean. Thick bolts of lightning were congregating from all directions. "Come on!" roared Suaping. Boom! A lightning bolt struck down from the clouds. It was almost 100 meters in diameter, which illuminated the world like a glowing pillar. At that moment, everybody behind the defense lines sensed the pillar of lightning and looked at Suaping. What a powerful lightning! Yuxiu and the others became pale as they witnessed such a display of power. They didn't think they could have resisted such an attack even though they were Void State warriors. While still in the base cities far away, the Heavenly King of Good and Evil and the other Fate State beasts from the deep caves learned the position of the being that was going through the test by using the lightning as reference. "Let's go!" The Heavenly King of Good and Evil roared and rushed over. All the other Fate State beasts followed, eager to know the examinee's identity. More and more Beast Kings were gathering in the place where Suaping was being tested. They were all eager to appreciate such a rare view. Not even slaughtering couldn't pique their interest anymore. After a loud bam, the pillar of lightning swallowed Suaping's body and heavily struck the ground, causing an earthquake with a 100-kilometer range. The lightning was so dazzling that it was impossible to tell what was going on inside. The lightning faded 10 seconds later. Suaping was still hovering where he used to be. His clothes and secret armor were all damaged, and his pet-fused athletic body was exposed. Few people thought that they could have resisted such an appalling test of the heavens except Ji Yuanfeng and the deputy chief. Some of the Ocean State legends wore bitter smiles, because they would have been vaporized if they were the ones going through that test. Only a monster like Suaping could have invoked such a horrifying trial and endured it. Boom! The dark clouds above Suaping's head were still surging after the first pillar of lightning. A second lightning bolt was brewing. Suaping raised his head and stared at the clouds with glittering eyes. He had survived through 100 lightning strikes in the demigod burial, although mostly because of riding on other people's tests. He was no stranger to them. He found that the lightning strike he had just endured seemed to be much more powerful than those he had previously experienced. Nevertheless, it wasn't too much for him to bear. The intimidating lightning strike earlier was enough to make Void State warriors feel pressure, but it caused nothing but a minor strain to him. His body was already as hard as that of the Fate State beings when he attained the second level of the solar bulwark. Void State attacks were basically harmless to him. "Come on!" roared Suaping, opening his arms. Dazzling golden light emanated from his body as he was ready to take the next strike. He hovered in the air proudly and brilliantly at the moment, as if he were a god walking the earth. The world was completely dim behind the defense lines. Many people who were hiding in the shelter saw the dazzling golden light. The formerly rampaging wild beasts halted altogether when the lightning storm that Suaping summoned showed up. The air was rife with a sense of danger under the thunderstorm, and the wild beasts were awed by the heavens again. Those less bold among them even crouched. All creatures had been scared of lightning since ancient times, not to mention those heavy, gloomy clouds caused by the heavens test that were almost pressing the ground. Boom! As if responding to Suaping, the clouds surged even more violently and shot out another lightning bolt. It wasn't as magnificent as the earlier one, but it was much faster and reached Suaping in the blink of an eye. Suaping was completely enshrouded by lightning. Suaping's silver hair was fluttering while wrapped in the massive power discharge, and golden light shined from his eyes. He sensed the pain in his chest when he was hit by the lightning, but it wasn't serious, it only made his blood boil. Heaven's test. Suaping detected a weird power in the clouds that were exploding. There seemed to be laws hidden inside the clouds, or something that was beyond them. He had participated in other people's tests in the demigod burial almost 100 times, but his understanding had never been deep. All the feelings he had before suddenly popped up in his heart. Epiphany wasn't something that would happen for no reason, it had to be based on one's experiences and understanding. Suaping examined that power while in the middle of the exploding lightning, and soon entered a mysterious state of perception. Heaven's test. Thunder. Boom. Suaping closed his eyes and stood in midair. Dark clouds were surging and roaring like dragons above him. The lightning bolts that were being shot out seemed to be destroying the world. People could see the glittering lightning bolts in every place behind the defense lines, that illuminated the world under the dim clouds. Those lightning bolts were half frozen and striking something. It seemed to be a battle between the heavens and a human. The scene was so shocking that many people were astounded. Boom! Boom! Sua Ping was entirely covered in lightning and became even more brilliant. His body was like golden glass. The consecutive lightning strikes didn't extinguish one bit of the divine power in his body, but made his skin even more flawless. It sent out splendid light as if it were an artifact. A scorching golden pattern was surfacing on Sua Ping's back. It was a golden crow that just unfolded its wings. The primordial aura of a demon was spread out of Sua Ping. He had basically inherited the golden crow bloodline ever since he reached the solar bulwark's second level, and he was essentially a little golden crow. The golden crow was an ancient beast whose aura had been driven out of Sua Ping's body because of the lightning strikes and permeated between the sky and the earth. Is he really human? I feel like he is a super beast. Ji Yuanfeng, Shui Yunzhen and the others were appalled. Sua Ping wasn't at all destroyed by the thunderstorm. On the contrary, he was becoming increasingly stronger, as if he would tear apart the world. Sua Ping's aura alone had awed them, making them feel the urge to kneel before him. The man seemed even more intimidating than the Lord of the Deep Caves. That guy! The Beast Kings coming from all directions were shocked. Some of them trembled as if they were looking up at a supreme being. The Heavenly King of Good and Evil, the Otherworld Heavenly King and the other Fate State wild beasts were also scared. All of them had the same thought, we can't let this human continue the test. Would it be horrifying if he really passed the test? Although the idea hovered in their heads, none of them had dared to take action. They stood where they were as if having been rooted. They didn't have the courage to attack Sua Ping, who was already releasing a magnificent pressure, and they didn't want to be consumed by the lightning strikes. None of them was confident of enduring them like Sua Ping did. The current power of the lightning strikes had reached the Fate State. Even Ji Yuanfeng, the deputy chief, and the many Fate State beasts felt a great deal of pressure too. If they ever got themselves involved, they would infuriate the clouds and make them twice as violent. The Closabe Lord of the Deep Caves was focused on absorbing the 1,000-year astral power. It concealed its aura, fearing that the clouds might detect it and strike it too. Its eyes contracted when it saw Sua Ping, who was floating at the same altitude where its head was. It was even more shocking to see the golden tattoo on Sua Ping's back. It's the aura of an ancient demon. It sensed the aura of an ancient demon from Sua Ping. It couldn't be more familiar with that vibe. The reason behind its evolution was the power of ancient demons in its bloodline. It didn't expect that human to also have the power. There was also an ancient aura, brilliant and sacred apart from the demon's aura. It awed the Lord of the Deep Caves from the bottom of its heart. I cannot let him pass the test. I can't. The idea popped up in the Lord's head. It didn't think much of Sua Ping earlier, for he would still be a major level below it. Even if he became a legendary warrior, it would still be able to crush Sua Ping into smithereens. However, the Lord of the Deep Caves' ominous feeling became stronger at that moment. It finally roared at the Beast Kings on the ground, "Stop him!" The roar echoed in the world and woke up all the Beast Kings that had been lost in a daze due to Sua Ping's test. All of them changed their expressions. Ji Yuanfeng and the other humans were also shocked and infuriated. All of them had realized the Lord's intention. It didn't do anything, and yet it asked the other Beast Kings to disrupt Sua Ping. Even if they were killed, they would still affect the Heavens test and increase its difficulty. Sua Ping could also die along with them. Damn it! Ji Yuanfeng and the others were exasperated and could only try to stop them. The Beast Kings, however, looked at each other in bewilderment, not daring to step forth. Seeing that, the Lord of the Deep Caves became incensed and glared at one of the Void State Beast Kings. Go! The Beast King trembled, but it didn't dare to disobey. It quickly flashed and charged at Sua Ping, who was in the sky. Ji Yuanfeng and the others' expressions changed and tried to stop it. On the other hand, the Fate State beasts also took action. They didn't attack Suoping but simply blocked Ji Yuanfeng and the other humans. Ji Yuanfeng and his fellows were quite anxious. The test was extremely important at the moment. Going through the test in public was prone to disturbances. A deafening roar came from a distance, exactly at that moment. Roar! Far away in the Longjiang base city, the Inferno Dragon which Suoping had deployed to assist Xiejin Shui soared back and let out a roar that echoed throughout the battlefield. The roar had been inherited from a Star State Dragon King. It shocked and frightened some of the Fate State Beast Kings. Although their fear was soon gone, they were nonetheless shocked. The Inferno Dragon quickly flew over while producing a resounding boom, ablaze with lightning and fire. It crashed into the Void State Beast King, and divine light burst out of its claws, tearing the enemy apart. The Lord of the Deep Caves was shocked and infuriated. They might be swallowed if their energy affected Suoping underneath Suoping's thunderstorm, but his battle pet wasn't afraid of anything. The pet's attack would be considered as Suoping's own because of the power of contract. They could resist the lightning strikes without doubling their power. Go! Fate State Beasts, kill him! Bloody eyes, go! Roared the Lord of the Deep Caves. Some of the Fate State Demon Kings from the Deep Caves changed their expressions. The thousand-eyed demon beast in particular, trembling with contracting eyes. It looked at the infuriated Lord of the Deep Caves with desperation in its eyes, not expecting that it would end up as cannon fodder before it could enjoy the world that they had finally conquered after hundreds of years of waiting. Ah! The thousand-eyed demon beast dashed forward angrily, ready to die with Suoping. The Inferno Dragon was ablaze with astral power and tried to stop the enemy, but there was a major strength gap between them. It was simply frozen, unable to move anymore. After a boom, the rampant bloody rays darted out towards Suoping. Suoping opened his eyes at that moment. Brilliant and sharp light shot from his eyes through the darkness, illuminating the world. His eyes were entirely indifferent and emotionless, as if he would have seen all the tragedies in the human world. He looked down coldly with divine light in his eyes. A lightning bolt was raised, shattering the many bloody rays. Then, it turned into an axe a dozen meters long and that slashed at the enemy. After a boom, the space in between was cracked, even the secondary space was also cracked. The axe cut the thousand-eyed demon beast directly. The eyes all over the thousand-eyed demon beast's body almost popped out. It could hardly believe it had been unable to block Suoping's attack. That's impossible! It roared, with its blood and soul burning. However, halfway through the roar, its body had been cut apart by the lightning axe. The scene was most shocking to the many Fate State Beast Kings down below. The thousand-eyed demon beast in the advanced phase of the Fate State, it wasn't weak at all, and yet Suoping killed it so easily. Boom! The clouds above Suoping's head roiled even more crazily after detecting the thousand-eyed demon beast's attack and prepared more powerful lightning strikes. Suoping raised his head and looked at the clouds hopefully. The previous lightning strikes weren't good enough for him. He looked forward to those which have been more powerful and catastrophic. The path of lightning. Suoping closed his eyes and contemplated again after examining the intense power of lightning around him. The Lord of the Deep Caves was quite grim while seeing Suoping contemplate. Suoping had grown so much in just one moment, as if he would have trained hard for years. After looking at the lightning strikes that were getting more and more violent, it didn't urge the other demon kings to attack anymore. One of the Fate State beasts has already attacked. The others couldn't have infuriated the clouds to a higher level, they could only get themselves killed. The Lord of the Deep Caves had to take action in person, or ask the Ocean Sovereign to do it. However, it couldn't find her at the moment. Otherwise, if she attacked with her shallow understanding of laws, the clouds would probably launch lightning strikes that entailed the power of laws, which would be 10 times more destructive and could kill Suoping easily. It could do the same on its own. However, the lightning strikes that were to be launched might be too powerful for it to resist, as it was heavily wounded at the moment. few. The Lord of the Deep Caves quickly absorbed the accumulated astral power to heal itself. It also prayed that Suaping would be heavily wounded, based on the test, so that it could kill him easily later. Back at ground level, all the Fate State beasts were relieved to find that the Lord of the Deep Caves didn't urge them to attack anymore. Ji Yuanfeng and the humans were also relaxed. They stopped and looked at Suaping with worry, as the clouds were evidently more violent than before. They wondered if Suaping could survive. Boom! In the blink of an eye, a powerful lightning strike descended from the sky and hit Suaping again. Suaping remained absolutely still and weathered through the lightning strike. After the lightning strike's effect ended, a second one followed me immediately, not giving Suaping any time to rest. Bang! 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 Suaping looked like a piece of iron that was being forged by a hammer of lightning in the sky. All the wild beasts hoped that Suaping would be smashed to the ground by the lightning strikes, but his body only became more and more brilliant after the strikes. So horrifying! Every lightning strike is as powerful as one of my attacks with my full strength. The lightning strikes are becoming more and more powerful. Ji Yuanfeng was quite shocked, as the destructiveness of the lightning bolts that Suaping endured were terrifying. He could have only endured 3 of them, even if he were in his best status. Suaping, on the other hand, had endured 10 of them. Yan Yuxiu, Shui Yunzhen and the others nearby were all at a loss for words. They stared at Suaping, hoping that he could make it through no matter what. The Inferno Dragon floated like a guard next to Suaping, with its back against him. It looked around at all the wild beasts, in case any of them would secretly attack. Boom! 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 In the dark and vast sky, nothing except the explosions of lightning strikes could be heard. The number of lightning strikes had far exceeded the usual test, nobody knew when they would stop. Stop! Suaping was wreathed in golden light as he floated in the sky, completely devoted to his own world. He scrutinized the aura of the mysterious test and tried to find its source. He could harness the test's power and use it to attack if he could grasp the mysteries behind it. As he continues analyzing, Suaping gradually found that the source of the test was not based on laws, or at least not the laws he understood. The test went deeper than laws. It contained the power of laws and superseded them, like some sort of order. There was no telling how long it had been. Suaping tried his best to get to the bottom of all those mysteries within the best of his abilities. However, he felt that he had just touched the test's surface. The more he studied, the more he understood its magnificence, and the power of the heavens behind it. I can't explore any further. Suaping's consciousness quickly returned. He felt that he would infuriate the heavens and end up being vaporized if he kept on exploring. The level was too high for him to explore just yet. That being said, the exploration was not entirely futile. He had grasped a feeling of the test and could fuse it in his sword technique, attacks, or body movement techniques. Suaping opened his eyes and looked at the lightning bolts that were still roaring crazily above his head. His eyes were completely filled up by purple-colored, dazzling lightning bolts. He felt less and less pain, as his body was strengthened by them, and the golden crow blood was better integrated with his body. My resistance to lightning seems to have improved. Suaping detected the drastic changes that happened to his body during the test. Most of the lightning power had been blocked by his body. What had damaged him mostly was the test's power imbued in it. The astral power in his cells had also been stimulated by the lightning. His status was even better than before the test. The lightning strikes were like tonics to him. This should be over now. Suaping looked at the rolling clouds in the sky, which weren't as dense as before. The energy contained in them seemed to have been mostly consumed. As he thought of that, the consecutive lightning strikes stopped. The next moment, all the clouds in the sky were gathered and compressed. An intimidating vibe was spread out as the clouds were being packed up together. Even Suaping's expression changed a bit. He narrowed his eyes as he looked up. Ji Yuanfeng and the other humans as well as the Fate State beasts were all slightly frightened. All of them sensed that the energy inside the clouds was enough to shatter the continent, if not the planet. The Lord of the Deep Caves, which was absorbing astral power in the distance, was also moved by this development. Even though it didn't sense any power of laws, the strike was already at the star state level in terms of raw energy. It didn't expect Suoping to face such a horrifying test while still breaking through to the legendary rank. The thousand-eyed demon beast had indeed played a part, but the strike wouldn't have been too weakened even without it. Bring it on! Suoping opened his hands with divine light gathering in his eyes and the dark sword in his hand. The golden crow's divine tattoo on his back became even brighter. Fumes of black demonic air were also spouted from the bottom of his wolf feet. He invoked the solar bulwark and unleashed a tremendous amount of demonic aura. A gigantic vortex that was 100 kilometers in diameter appeared in the clouds above Suoping's head. Lightning and storms were raging inside it. Boom! A pillar of lightning that was 3,000 meters in diameter descended like a dragon. Instead of moving back, Suoping stepped forward with his silver hair flying, going straight for the lightning and slashing with his sword, with his brilliant golden body floating over the dark demonic air. A sword aura that was more than 1,000 meters wide clashed with the pillar of lightning and caused a deafening shockwave. The enormous pillar of lightning was cut apart and then swept close all the same, descending over Suoping's body. After a resounding boom, the ground under Suoping's feet was struck hard, producing a massive crater similar to a volcanic eruption. The buildings nearby were shattered into pieces. Ji Yuanfeng and the other humans were already hiding at a distance and watching nervously. The Inferno Dragon which had been defending Suoping disappeared from its former position in the sky when the pillar of lightning fell. Suoping recalled it by force. Even if the Inferno Dragon was willing to, Suoping was still able to forcefully recall it in his current status. The thunder gradually died down. The clouds above everybody's heads seemed to have finally run out of power. They gradually dispersed and revealed the blue sky. There was light in the world again. Everybody looked at the place where Suoping was hovering when the clouds dispersed. They instantly saw that he was still there, sword in hand. The divine light had faded from his body, and his blood was gushing out, dripping from his fingers and running through the blade, then all the way to the ground. Mr. Su. Shui Yunzhen and all the others were shocked by Suoping's heavy wounds. Once it saw the outcome, the Lord of the Deep Caves grinned and declared, "You're dead." It instantly stopped absorbing the astral power and unleashed a demonic aura. It could finally kill Suoping, since the heavens test was no longer in the way. It had half recovered its strength by absorbing the thick astral power that had been locked for 1,000 years. It was a perfect moment to attack. He's dead. I didn't expect the last lightning strike to be so horrifying. I think I would have been killed if I had touched it. The attack was probably at the star state level. He endured a star state attack right after breaking through to the legendary rank and lived through it. It's already something to be proud of. The Fate State beasts wore relieved smiles. They would only act fearlessly if Suoping were dead. Ji Yuanfeng and the other humans, however, looked awful. They didn't expect such an ending after all their fighting. They were unwilling to give in. Boom! Boom! The Lord of the Deep Caves strode toward Suoping. The earth rumbled under its feet. However, it suddenly stopped and then gazed at Suoping after only taking a few steps. Everybody saw that bits of brilliant golden light were again bursting out of Suoping's body. The light emanated from his blood-covered body emerged like mushrooms after the rain. Suoping was immediately wreathed in golden light again. An intimidating vibe, which felt like that of a god, was spread out from him. Suoping raised his head and gave an indifferent and expressionless look at the Lord of the Deep Caves. His eyes, filled with divine light, were fixed on the enemy. The Lord of the Deep Caves seemed shocked. Suoping seemed to be much stronger than before he survived the test's attacks. Damn it! It was the result of the Heavens test, which could help with consolidating your cultivation. The Lord of the Deep Caves came to that frustrating conclusion. However, there was no looking back anymore. In fact, the very thought of flinching had infuriated the ominous creature. A star-state beast like itself had been frightened by a new legend and thought of retreating? Go to hell! The Lord of the Deep Caves punched aggressively. The ancient runes on its wings appeared and darted out, raising an ocean of blood in midair. The ocean of blood was expanded and covered tens of thousands of meters in the sky. Its stench made a lot of wild beasts have difficulty breathing. The Lord of the Deep Caves growled as it stood over the bloody ocean, then it stepped out like a devil. A demon-filled domain appeared again and darkened the world. Suaping was becoming brighter and brighter above the blood ocean. Suaping became colder and increasingly brutal as it faced that hellish ocean of blood. Strange light flashed in his eyes. He stepped out. An explosive boom was heard, the air grew turbulent and the bloody ocean raged. Lightning bolts grew out from under his feet like a vigorous flower. He walked on lightning lotuses. The Lord of the Deep Caves was shocked to see the lightning underneath Suaping's feet. The law of lightning? This is impossible. It's a perfected law of lightning. It felt like it was going crazy, unable to believe what it was seeing. Suaping had just entered the legendary level, yet he had perceived the law of lightning. The law was even more comprehensive than what Suaping had shown with his sword technique. It was almost a complete law. You spent 1,000 years in the deep caves. You should have stayed there. Divine light and lightning shone from Suaping. He grasped the intermediate path of lightning as he was going through the test. Thanks to hints made by the system, it was then upgraded to the advanced path of lightning. The advanced path of lightning was closely related to the laws. Suaping had indeed perceived the laws and trajectories of lightning from the test, and he had grasped a much deeper understanding. After all, he had participated in too many tests from other people and understood a lot of things from those life and death experiences. It wasn't surprising that his understanding of the path of lightning had been upgraded to the advanced level. Let me try my newly created sword technique with your body. Suaping raised his hand. The astral power in his cells surged out like a tide. Lightning hopped around his wrist, and many more lightning bolts were also slithering in the void. He seemed to be clenching all of them. Lightning prison, catastrophic void sword. The dazzling lightning bolts were compressed on the sword in Suaping's hand. The sword was also covered in a thick demonic aura. Once the divine light was gathered, the sword became so brilliant that it launched a purple and black lightning aura that tore apart the world. I won't lose. Die! The Lord of the Deep Caves roared in shock and fury. Demonic air was spread out of all its acupoints and covered up half the sky, making it look like a blood-curdling demon overlord. Slash! Suaping stepped out with glittering eyes and slashed using the gathered sword aura in his hand. Thousands of thunders rumbled at the same time, that was all that anyone could hear. Then, the sword aura was extended to almost 3,000 meters long and cut the Lord of the Deep Caves right at the end. When the sword aura fell, the bloody ocean under the Lord of the Deep Caves' feet surged and then split up. The ocean had been split up beyond control when the sword aura approached it, as if it couldn't handle the pressure. All the creatures present were too shocked to say anything after witnessing such an attack. Boom! A deafening explosion burst out. The demons that roared around the Lord of the Deep Caves were torn by the lightning bolts gathered in the sword aura. Their lord's highly raised fist was frozen. The next moment, its body exploded and fell into halves. Space had collapsed in the place where the massive body was bisected, and the violent lightning of destruction shredded its body, turning it into a storm of blood. Its blood and skin fell off, leaving the bones to collapse like skyscrapers. They caused a noise as loud as that of a landslide, burying a lot of buildings and wild beasts. One attack, and only the bones remained. The Fate State Demon Kings were so shocked to see that scene that they didn't know what to say. The Lord of the Deep Caves had been defeated. It had been slain by Suaping with one attack. Even its blood and flesh had also been destroyed. It had to be noted that Suaping was just a new legendary warrior. A new legend had killed a star-state foe, which was beyond anyone's imagination. Ji Yuanfeng and the other humans looked at the scene in disbelief, feeling like they were dreaming. They had already been overwhelmed by despair moments earlier, but then Suaping gave them new hope, and nothing could destroy this hope ever again. Once the Lord of the Deep Caves died, the beast tides would soon collapse, as nobody could resist Suaping's power. Dead, it's dead. Were we saved? Shui Yunzhen and the other legendary warriors stood in a daze. Some were already shedding hot tears, as it really hadn't been an easy won victory. Too many men had been sacrificed in that war. There were dead bodies all over. All the battle pet warriors who had fought until the end were heroes. Even though many of their names were unknown. Up in the air. Suaping breathed heavily. He had just passed the test and his cultivation hadn't been thoroughly consolidated yet. The previous attack had almost taken 90% of all the power in his body. However, the result was quite obvious. Combining the laws of lightning and annihilation, together with the feeling of the heavens test he had comprehended, the attack was 10 times more powerful than his void sword. It died. The Lord of the Deep Caves was definitely dead. Suaping could tell that its body had been ripped apart and its vitality was completely destroyed by the law of lightning. Even the remaining energy had been annihilated. It couldn't have been more dead. Humanity had won the battle. Suaping couldn't help but roar to express his delight. His roar echoed in the sky and on the vast battlefield. The Fate State beasts snapped out of their shock. They trembled and paled as they considered the outcome. The Lord of the Deep Caves had died and the monster Suaping was still alive. Even the Lord of the Deep Caves had been killed by him. Who could possibly defeat him? This human is already invincible in the world. The Lord of the Deep Caves had been rooted and killed. Its star state cultivation wasn't enough to defeat Suaping, who had just become a legendary warrior. That was unbelievable. Where do you think you're going? Suaping noticed that the Heavenly King of Good and Evil was escaping in the secondary space. The Heavenly King was nowhere to be seen in the outer world, but Suaping's lightning-infused eyes saw it while it was running at full speed in the secondary space. Slash! Suaping stood still and slashed forward. A boom was heard, then the void was cut open. The sword aura caught up to the Heavenly King of Good and Evil in the secondary space. While sensing the stinging sword aura behind its back, the once exalted Beast King begged, terrified, "I surrender. I'm willing to surrender." The Beast King that had dominated the blue planet for 1,000 years was kneeling in the secondary space and begging for mercy in front of Suaping's invincible sword aura. But Suaping wasn't willing to spare any. The Heavenly King of Good and Evil was already at the peak of the Fate State. Nobody knew what it had gained from the battle. Things would be tricky if it reached the star state after escaping. Besides, it had slaughtered a lot of humans. There was still human blood on its claws and tail. No. Looking at the still advancing sword aura, the Heavenly King came to the ghastly realization that Suaping was determined to kill it. The fear in its eyes was instantly replaced by aggression. It roared and unleashed a dark dragon power as an attempt to resist the attack. However, the sword aura was indestructible, it shattered all the energy it came across. Then, it flashed and cut apart the black dragon's head. After a loud bam, lightning exploded and blew its neck into pieces. Its body was forced out of the secondary space and fell thousands of meters. The other Fate State beasts looked at the Heavenly King's corpse while trembling with fear. Some fell on their knees and begged. Some of the others, however, tore space open and fled. The Beast Kings of lower levels were the same, all of them flashed and dispersed in panic. The battle was already lost. They had to run for their lives. Ji Yuanfeng and the others were of a mind to chase them, but they were already exhausted after helping Suaping attack the Lord of the Deep Caves earlier on. They could end up dying if they decided to chase and corner those beasts. Suaping looked at the running beasts and focused his attention on those at the Fate State. Right when he was about to take action, he suddenly sensed something and turned around. Then, he saw a shadow that was quickly escaping from the Lord of the Deep Caves' remains. "It's not dead?" Suaping was quite shocked to detect the Lord's aura from that fleeing shadow. The Lord of the Deep Caves hadn't been slain. It was just pretending to be dead. He then ignored the fate state creatures and quickly went after the shadow with lightning underneath his feet. The fate state beasts were thrilled to see him leave and quickly ran for it. Whoosh! Suaping flashed close to a certain area. He slashed with his sword, and a black crack appeared in front of the shadow. The shadow was apparently a beast no more than 2 meters tall. It had long pointy ears and resembled the former Lord of the Deep Caves, but it no longer carried the Lord of the Deep Caves' gravitas, it seemed to be a weakened and shrunk version. You almost got away. Suaping's eyes were cold. That Star State Demon King was truly good at escaping and almost managed to get away. Once it saw Suaping again, it desperately knelt and kowtowed loudly. Please, spare my life. I've lost all my power. This is just a remnant of my body that I managed to preserve. I can't regain my strength no matter how I train. I'll go back to the deep caves and never come out again. Ji Yuanfeng and the others who had just caught up were shocked to see and hear the Lord of the Deep Caves. It was already surprising enough that the creature was still alive, it came as an extra shock to see it beg in such a pathetic manner. It had finally broken the seal in the deep caves and escaped, but then it ran back to the deep caves, swearing not to come out again because of Suaping. It was rather pitiful. Suaping sneered. He would never spare it. How many humans had died all across the globe? Right when he was about to kill it, he suddenly thought of the ceiling formation in the deepest part of the caves. He calmly said, "Let me ask you, what's confined in the ceiling formation found in the deep caves?" Ji Yuanfeng and the others who heard Suaping's question were slightly surprised. They had never been aware of that thing. The Lord of the Deep Caves, which looked like a skinny gnome at the moment, was stunned by what Suaping had just said. It asked while showing contracted pupils, "You've been there. Don't answer my question with another question." 2 lightning bolts darted out of Suaping's eyes and shot the Lord of the Deep Caves like sharp blades, causing a huge explosion and leaving a large scorched area. They weren't simply lightning bolts, but a power that contained the law of lightning. The Lord of the Deep Caves screamed and confessed, wait, there's a stronger monster than myself inside the formation." Everybody was shocked by that revelation. Suaping slightly changed his expression. A monster that was even stronger than the one he had just beaten? Is that so? Suaping stared at the Lord of the Deep Caves. What is it? Why was it sealed? Was it sealed by you? The Lord of the Deep Caves moaned, refraining from answering Suaping's questions. Seeing its evasive eyes, Suaping became cold and slashed at the creature. A bam resounded, then the aura of annihilation cut off half of its arm and body. The Lord of the Deep Caves was greatly scared, it shouted, "Stop! Stop now! Talk! Don't push me too far! That monster is much stronger than me. I can easily send a telepathic message to my clone back there and command the Beast Kings I left there to destroy the formation. All of us will be doomed if the things inside are freed," roared the Lord of the Deep Caves. Ji Yuanfeng and the others were all pale with fear. Suaping, however, didn't completely believe what the Lord said. He felt that it was bluffing. Suaping declared sharply, "Humph, you would have freed them already if you were really capable of doing that, especially when you were caught by me. Otherwise, you wouldn't have made such a confession to dissuade me from killing you. Since you're unwilling to confess, I'll just take you to a certain someone, she would easily examine your memories. We'll see what it's all about." Naturally, the person he referred to was Joanna. She could read the memories of anyone weaker than her with secret godly techniques. Joanna's soul was more powerful than the Lord of the Deep Caves. After all, her original self was a god of rules, Star State God warriors were merely her lackeys. Didn't push too far. The Lord of the Deep Caves was truly frightened. It didn't know if Suaping was telling the truth, but with everything that he had done thus far, it didn't dare to underestimate that human anymore. Suaping sneered and extended his hand, ready to catch it. The Lord of the Deep Caves became aggressive upon seeing that Suaping was determined to catch it. It bellowed, "Let's die together then." Its throat was clutched by Suaping right after saying that. How? Suaping looked at the Lord of the Deep Caves, which had lost all of its cultivation and only had void state energy. He could kill it with ease. The Lord of the Deep Caves trembled with fury as it noticed how the question was laced with disdain. It declared with brutal certainty, "Just you wait. I've just ordered my clone to destroy the ceiling formation." Suaping frowned. He was slightly worried, but he was more inclined to believe it was a bluff aimed at finding a chance to survive, judging from the Lord's odd behavior. Boom! An earthquake suddenly rattled the area. Suaping and the others immediately reacted to the change. Was there really something horrifying about to come out? Suaping also had a contorted face. "Ha ha ha, carry on. I warned you not to push me too far, but you just had to. Now, prepare to die with me." The Lord of the Deep Caves laughed. "Let me tell you the truth, I had already destroyed the formation when you slashed my body." "Ha ha. Go to hell." Suaping's eyes were cold. He clenched his fists and was about to squeeze. The Lord of the Deep Caves had some trouble breathing, but its face was excessively red. It seemed to be ecstatic, or maybe delirious. It cackled and said, "I don't know what's sealed in the formation, but I can feel the horrifying energy contained within it. I protected the ceiling formation for years, fearing that it might be broken. But I don't have to anymore. If you want to kill me, you can all go ahead and join me in death." Its body exploded before it had the chance to finish the sentence. Lightning dashed from the exploding body and evaporated it into nothingness, not even ashes were left behind. Even though the Lord of the Deep Caves had exploded and disappeared, Ji Yuanfeng and all the others became pale when the earthquake began. After all, what the Lord said was too appalling. Never had they known that such a horrifying thing would be sealed inside the deep caves. "Chief, do you know what's sealed in there?" Someone looked at Ji Yuanfeng. Ji Yuanfeng replied gloomily, "No. I'd never heard of such a thing in the deep caves. The first generation Tower Master probably knows about it." The first generation Tower Master. Yao Yuxiu and the others were slightly thoughtful after being reminded of their predecessor. Shui Yunzhen quickly leaped out. She flew to the distance and then flashed back with another person. The person was exactly Naihuo Feng, who had fought the Lord of the Deep Caves in an earlier encounter. Naihuo Feng's skin had at the moment cracked, spilling blood everywhere. His previously red hair had lost its brilliance, becoming like dry grass. His cheeks were thin, he was extremely weak, as if all his fat reserves would have been extracted. "Tower Master, do you know what monster is sealed inside the deep caves?" asked someone as soon as possible. Naihuo Feng raised his weak eyes. He didn't look like a young man anymore, he was more like a dying old man. That's a formation from ancient times. I don't know anything about it," replied Naihuo Feng with a feeble voice. Everybody's heart became heavy after they heard that. Not even Naihuo Feng knew what was in it. Boom! The earthquake then became even more violent. It didn't happen just underneath their feet, but behind all the defense lines and even across the entire subcontinent district. What a loud noise! What kind of monster could that be? Everybody looked desperate, as the noise was 100 times more horrifying than what the Lord of the Deep Caves could have caused. Suaping had a look of distress. Then, the drastic earthquake came to an abrupt halt without the slightest aftershock exactly at that moment. Everybody looked at each other in bewilderment. Suddenly, one of them exclaimed, "Look at the sky!" Everybody looked up, only to be dumbfounded by what they were seeing. A gigantic planet could be seen in the sky high above. There was also an enormous ring around the planet. Besides that one, there were also multiple planets of different sizes, probably due to the viewer's perspective. Nevertheless, all of them could be clearly seen, even the green forests, the blue seas, and the brown continents could be appreciated on one of the larger worlds. They were as vivid as those seen on Earth's observatories that were beyond their atmosphere. What's going on? Everybody was befuddled. The sky above their heads changed in the blink of an eye. Was it an illusion? Apparently not. Suoping was just as stunned, not knowing what had happened. The system chose that exact moment to send a message to reverberate in Suoping's head, all with the already familiar casual and lazy style. It's been detected that the host is currently in the least prosperous area in the solar system. Please relocate the shop to an area with at least Tier 3 prosperity within a week. Suoping was startled. Solar system? Least prosperous? Confused, he quickly asked, what is going on? What solar system? The host's planet has just leaped and aligned in another solar system, which is currently thriving. The host's planet has the weakest economy in the entire solar system. Please relocate as soon as possible to ensure the shop's normal operation, replied the system casually. Suoping blinked his eyes, clearly stunned. A planetary leap? Is the blue planet no longer in the old solar system anymore? Suoping could somehow believe that all of it was true, just by looking at the differently sized planets above his head. Still, it was hard coming to terms with the change. Was the previous earthquake the side effect of the planetary leap? Then, did the Lord of the Deep Caves activate a teleportation array to facilitate a planetary leap, right when it destroyed the seal in the deep caves? Suoping could hardly think straight. Looking similarly stunned legendary warriors, he asked Ji Yuanfeng, Chief, could you head down to the deep caves and check what happened? Ji Yuanfeng. His expression changed after seeing the stern look in Suoping's eyes. He gritted his teeth, then said, no problem. I can go there. Suoping said in relief, go now if you can. I suspect that what was freed from the ceiling formation was not a wild beast. It's a long story, you'd better confirm this first. Ji Yuanfeng's lips twitched. So, I'm just a lab rat? However, with everything having reached that point, he had already set his own safety aside. He nodded. No problem. I'll be going now. He then waved his hand and disappeared. Suoping had sent him to the deep caves mainly because there were 4 more fate state beasts outside of the ceiling formation that other people could hardly deal with. There's no need to panic. It's quite likely that we've arrived in another solar system, said Suoping. Everybody widened their eyes in surprise. That piece of information was quite hard to believe. We're no longer in the old solar system? The planet has just completed a long-distance leap. We're probably in another solar system where the blue planet isn't the only place with civilizations. There are lives on other planets too. If I'm guessing correctly, I think we've moved to a more habitable region in the Federation, said Suoping. Everybody was dazed by what Suoping had said. A planetary leap? They had never heard anything about that. They had long dreamed about traveling across the vacuum of space if they could reach the star state, to then reach the habitable solar systems in the Federation. However, Suoping had just claimed that the entire blue planet had leaped to a thriving solar system, presumably from the Federation. It was almost like moving from a remote, barren village to a populous metropolis. That was beyond reason and logic. But the extraordinary views in the sky had partially convinced them of what Suoping told them. Nevertheless, there were still a lot more questions. What kind of miraculous power could have supported a planetary leap? And the next burning question, what was the solar system they had reached? Could they adapt to that place? All the habitable solar systems of the Federation had been modified according to human living requirements. Any human could live there. Cosmic rays and sunlight were similar. However, there were still idiosyncrasies. After all, even on the blue planet, those who lived on the equator and those who lived in the poles had obviously different skin colors. Look, something's coming. It's a spaceship. It really is. Someone noticed that an enormous spaceship was approaching the atmosphere. It seemed to be only the size of a sesame seed, but it was probably 10 times bigger than the largest aircraft carriers in the old age since they could see it with their own eyes. What he said seems to be true. Everybody was becoming more convinced about the things Suaping was claiming as they saw the spaceship moving closer. They grew anxious. All of them were newcomers. That had to be a prosperous place in the Federation if spaceships had been built in that solar system, which would possibly host many experts. Hey! The spaceship stopped. Look, the spaceship is landing. It seems to be coming in, but it's blocked. Someone had soon noticed that the spaceship was weird. It was squeezing through the atmosphere and firing what appeared to be laser cannons. However, it failed to break the invisible obstacles and remained blocked outside the atmosphere. I don't think they can come in. Everybody discovered, to their astonishment, that their atmosphere was harder than they thought, given that more and more spaceships were joining efforts to enter. Suaping thought of the recent planetary leap and the sealing formation in the deep caves. Is the previously contained energy still protecting the blue planet? Would the blue planet break into pieces without the protection of that extraordinary energy during the previous leap? However, the energy would be used up sooner or later. Suaping was solemn, wondering what would happen when the spaceships landed on the blue planet later. Going by logic, the blue planet belonged to the Federation, and it was still inside a solar system of the Federation. It should be under the protection of federal laws. Those people would surely not dare to do anything. Everybody, clear the remaining wild beasts and wait until the chief comes back, said Suaping as he withdrew his gaze from the sky. Everybody then finally remembered that there were still plenty of wild beasts behind the defense lines. All the beast kings had run away, but the ignorant and fearless lower-rank wild beasts were still looking for food. That's right. Let's take care of the beast tides first. Let's go. Everybody commented. They had been unable to finish off the tough beast kings, but it was quite easy for them to deal with subpar wild beasts. Suaping focused his attention on the heaven lock after they dispersed and left. The astral power seeping from the seal had been kept for 1,000 years, it was as dense as honey and was gradually volatilizing. Suaping had simply flown towards the seal. Once he got there, he came to the conclusion that nothing was more reliable than his own strength. He had to get stronger. There were also plenty of spaceships outside the atmosphere at the moment. Nobody knew when the power that protected the blue planet would fade away. The foreigners could possibly become tempted by the thick astral power they could consume. Phew! Suaping arrived at the honey-like astral power and activated the chaos star chart. All of his cells absorbed the power crazily, as if they were engines. All the astral power flowed into his body. He absorbed it even faster than the Lord of the Deep Caves did, particularly because of the difference in the cultivation arts they practiced. Suaping soon felt that all the cells in his body had been filled up by astral power. His aura was on the rise. Impurities were removed when the astral power entered his body, becoming the purest astral power. Suaping perceived that the cells in his body were bulging as the astral power was being compressed. The cells became more and more substantial than before. They were no longer empty. Every cell was like a solid small planet. Suaping closed his eyes and compressed the astral power in his body, until his cells were completely filled up. When he compressed the astral power again and again, it turned from gas into fluid, all until it was piled in his cells as concrete stardust. His cells were mutating and emitting light. Suaping's entire body glowed when billions of cells mutated at the same time. His skin cracked completely and revealed new skin. All the impurities in his cells were squeezed out too. He became lighter and brighter, as if he would have been reborn. He shook the impurities off of the surface of his body. His skin was fair, seemingly having been made of beads of water, which were elastic, flexible, and full of power. Suaping slowly opened his eyes and found that the world was clearer. The cells inside his eyes seemed to have evolved. All his senses had also been enhanced. I think I've reached the peak of the ocean state. After checking the magnificent astral power in his body, Suaping felt that he could unleash a horrifying amount of energy if he detonated the planet-like cells in his body. He had dozens of times more astral power than before. He felt as if he could kill the Lord of the Deep Caves with nothing but the Void Sword if they ever met again. He could break the enemy's defense with the annihilation law attached to the Sword of the Void, and then kill it. Provided there was enough energy. Hey? The astral power is gone? Suaping looked ahead and didn't find much astral power left beyond the seal. He crossed the barrier and immediately saw a vast terrain, and yet there was a little leftover astral power left in the soil. Suaping's eyes widened. I only sucked up the astral power that had been sealed for 1,000 years. But I only just became full. Suaping mumbled and wondered if the Lord of the Deep Caves had absorbed too much and didn't leave a lot for him. He thought it was quite a plausible possibility. The Lord of the Deep Caves would probably become infuriated to death again if it were alive and knew what Suaping was planning, for it only had no more than 1/10 of what Suaping did. And yet, it had to take the blame even though it was already dead. The heaven lock has been broken. It'll slowly crack if it's not repaired, and the world within would mix with the blue planet. Perhaps the blue planet would become a lot bigger, maybe even twice as large as before. Suaping heaved a soft sigh. It wasn't bad if the blue planet got bigger, after all, the nearby planets above his head seemed to be much bigger than the blue planet. The blue planet looked like a dwarf in front of them. Humans would have to stay put for the moment. After all, it was impossible to make the planet leap again unless some super expert took action. However, the experts who were capable of doing that had to be the best in the universe, and the top-tier dignitaries in the Federation.